Everybody, and welcome to the ordinary monthly meeting of Council, Wednesday the 17th of June 2020. It's lovely to have you all here, and would also like to welcome Pastor Chris Downs and members of the media community. Thank you for attending all. Okay, we'll move into the order of business, and I don't believe we have anyone requiring a leave of absence. So we'll move through to you, Pastor Chris Downs. And Pastor Chris, thank you for joining us as a member of the ministerial fraternity. And we'd like to now invite you to open the meeting with prayers. If you'd like to come up to the lectern. Thank you, Pastor Chris.
Thank you for this opportunity to open this meeting in prayer. I don't know what any of your personal beliefs are, and that's not the concern. I thank you for honouring this opportunity and saying, I'm totally convinced there is a God. You may not be, but if there is, it's a good thing to have him on side, I would reckon. So I've been reading recently in Psalms, which are prayers in God's Bible that he endorsed that are good. And the one I'm working on at the moment is a royal psalm, which is about what government is supposed to do. And three things stood out to me: that the role of government is to bring justice, the role of government is to enable and encourage prosperity, and the role of government is protection from enemies. So my prayer for you this morning is going to involve asking you for wisdom and things for you guys to do that. Almighty God, you who rule the universe have given human beings and people opportunities to exercise leadership and to rule certain areas. Lord, we bring before you this council today as they seek to make decisions over our area that lead us towards good. We pray particularly for wisdom for each member as they seek to know what is best for our area, in the areas of justice, in the areas of protection, in the areas of prosperity. Lord, we pray for truth to be evident, that where there are lies, that they will stand out. Where there is truth, it will just sink into people's hearts and minds and spirits to see it. Lord, we just pray for insight, because there are many decisions that come across the path of all those in leadership that are really quite difficult at times, and there's no simple solution. We just pray for wisdom and insight for them, this body, as they make those decisions. Father, we pray a blessing on our area, and we pray a blessing on each of these members of council as they seek to serve, and as they serve it to the best of their ability and in honesty. We pray that you will bless them in regards to that. Father, we also thank you for our area. We thank you for that there has been very little COVID in this area. We thank you for the natural resources of our area. And we humbly ask for rain, Lord. Our area needs it. Our farmers need it. So thank you again for your care and interest in each of us and in our area. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you again, councillors.
Pastor Chris, our sincere thanks for joining us today and sharing with us those wonderful words of prayer. May you have a blessed day. Thank you. I'd like to now call on Councillor Duff as the Indigenous portfolio holder to conduct the recognition of the traditional owners. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had an apology. I rang Pastor Max just a minute ago and he's on his way to Brisbane. So in his absence, it is my honour and privilege to acknowledge country and the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka people. And I'd like to acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. We'll now move on to confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. which was conducted on Wednesday the 20th of May 2020 in the Warren Trust Chamber. And do we have a mover that the minutes be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Fryloff. All in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, in relation to today's agenda, do we have any declarations in relation to conflict of interest?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to declare a potential perceived conflict of interest for item 12.4, being that my children attend St John's Lutheran School here in Kingaroy.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. If we could please record that Councillor Shoemaker has provided a perceived conflict of interest in relation to item 12.4, and we will refer that matter to Council. I've also, myself, would like to declare a conflict of interest, perceived conflict of interest as such, in relation to the Tobinga Rotary Club. There's a matter at hand today in relation to the club. Also, item 12.4. While I'm not an executive member of the club, I am a member of the club as such, and would like to put forward that. When we get to item 12.4, I think Councillor Jones, as the deputy, we might hand that over to you to put the matter to Council as to whether or not it's appropriate for Councillor Shoemaker and myself to participate in that matter. Thank you. Right, now we'll move on to item 6.1, which is at 39 of our notes, and it refers to the receipt of a petition that Council reconsider issuing an updated letter of support for the Bunya Mountains Dark Sky Park. So if we could please turn to 39. And the officer's recommendation as such is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration and relevant action. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Okay, does anyone wish to speak for or against receipt of the petition? No? Those in favour? Okay. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you all. We'll move on to item 7, which is the portfolio report for the social and corporate performance, people and culture, communications, media, finance, and item and ICT at 41, and it will be my pleasure to present such. This council is committed to exploring the avenues of external funding to relieve the financial burden on our ratepayers. As such, in recent weeks, council has hit a significant milestone in securing major external funding for our region. $4.7 million in funding through the federal government's Building Better Regions Fund to progress the Kingaroy Transformation Project. $3.31 million from the 2020-21 COVID Works for Queensland program as part of the Queensland Government's Economic Recovery Strategy, Unite and Recover for Queensland Jobs. $1,644,465 from the Local Road and Community Infrastructure Program and $1.6 million from Roads to Recovery. In the past month, I am pleased to announce that I have commenced the promised have a chat, meet and greet in our community, meet and greet meetings in our communities. My visits to Proston, Murgon and Wondai communities were well received, with time well spent meeting with a large number of residents. Having listened to residents share their concerns as well as their aspirations for their communities, I have brought back to Council a range of issues for consideration. These sessions start the process of improved community engagement, which is a commitment of this term of Council. In the coming weeks, I will be visiting Kingaroy, Nanango, Blackbutt, Maidenwell and Cumbia. I would like to take this opportunity to formally acknowledge the recent work that our staff have undertaken maintaining our council facilities, such as community parks and gardens. It is encouraging to receive positive feedback from across the region. Council has been diligently working behind the scenes to progress the development of the draft 2021 budget. Collectively, we have received the Capital Works program in the areas of water, wastewater, roads, buildings and parks and gardens. The next stage is to workshop the review of the operational budget for the various departments. In conjunction with these workshops, Council is discussing the rating strategy for the upcoming year, considering the longer-term impact on our community. The review of the rating categories to reflect equity across the rating system is also being undertaken. At this stage, it is the intention of Council to bring down the budget next month on 15 July 2020. People and culture. A continual review of engagement of Council staff across the organisation with particular focus on communications delivery has been occurring. In relation to workplace health and safety, statutory training has recommended where possible, with the continued restrictions by the state government. There has been an employee development review process, has been reviewed prior to the rollout in July-August 2020, and officer and field staff collective agreement documents continue to progress to the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission for certification of the 2 collective agreements. Documents and lodgement forms are currently with industrial advisors and relevant unions. Back payments and bonus payments have been made to eligible staff and rates have increased accordingly. Communications and media. In May 2020, the Media and Communications team progressed 41 media releases, ranging from information as to successful community grant recipients and the update of the Lamb Street Mergen footpath, curb and channel replacement, through to funding available through Sport and Rec, and Council supporting National Reconciliation Week, just to name a few. We had 20 media inquiries and we had 67 Facebook posts, and Council's, the most popular being on the 1st of May 2020 in relation to restrictions eased, which reached an audience of 8,075 users. Council's South Burnett Region Facebook page ended the month with 7,608 likes and 7,859 followers. Council also progressed 2 full-page ads in the South Burnett Times during May, and Council progressed 1 full-page ad in the Mergen Moments for What's On at South Burnett Libraries and 1 half-page ad for the region's dams. Graphical design. Council produced the brochure, COVID-19 Recovery, Community Relief and Support Agencies in the South Burnett, as well as the brochure on weed, hygiene, washdown facilities. Finance. The monthly financial report is designed to illustrate the financial performance and position of South Burnett Regional Council compared to the adopted third quarter budget. At an organisational level, for the period ended 30 June 2020, this financial report is prepared based on interim financial results as at 31 May 2020. Overall, recurrent revenue is tracking high at 98% due to the rates being levied for the full year and having received $4.7 million from the Federal Assistance Grant Scheme during May. Fees and charges and rental income are also tracking high at 104 and 116% respectively due to the timing of applications and annual invoices/registrations. Due to the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, we do not anticipate receiving any more substantial fees and charges by 30 June 2020. We also expect that some of the additional income in these areas will need to be deferred into next year when end-of-year adjustments are performed as they relate to rental for future periods. Overall, recurrent expenditure is tracking on target at 91%. Materials and services is tracking on target, also at 91%. This will be closely monitored by Finance over this next month. Finance costs are still tracking slightly low at 69% due to the number of year-end adjustments that will be performed at 30 June 2020, including landfill and gravel provisions. Finance costs are still tracking slightly low at 69% due to the number of end-of-year adjustments that will be performed at 30 June, including landfill and gravel provisions. It should be noted that whilst depreciation is tracking on target, the processing of work in progress and disposals remains underway for roads, fleet and ICT, which may impact the final year-end balances. Employee benefits is tracking on target However, the amount of capitalised wages, end-of-year adjustments and EB negotiations will affect the final June numbers. Cash and cash equivalents are sitting at $50.3 million. This is high due to both the Federal Assistant Grant Scheme and Work for Queensland Q3 grant funds being received in this month. This balance should decrease next month, as very little revenue is expected to be received in June. Accounts receivable, the debtors' 90-day balance has increased slightly this month, while debt collection has been temporarily suspended due to the impact of COVID-19. Outstanding debts are still being monitored and followed up internally with department managers to ensure we are ready to begin collection processes again when the time arises. Rate in arrears is currently $6.231 million at 11%, representing 11%. This has again decreased since the previous month. The current monthly ratios are tracking on target, except for the operating cash ratio, which is sitting above the target benchmark. This is partially due to the spike in cash balance, as mentioned before, from the Federal Assistant Grant Scheme and Work for Queensland Q3 grants, which, as mentioned, were received in May. Of the total available capital budget of $37.4 million, 76% has been spent to date, including committed costs. Road maintenance has increased approximately $527,000 from April to a total actual and committed cost of $5,931,000. Works for Queensland has $3,724,000 of actuals to date, with a further $809,000 in committed costs. The $1.8 million milestone was paid into Council's account in May. Council's interim audit is currently underway, with auditors commencing their second interim audit remotely on 25 May 2020. The next audit visit is scheduled for September 2020. Council is also in the process of preparing the 2020/21 original budget, and I would move that portfolio report now be received. Thank you. Thank you for seconding that, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you. Right, item 7.2 on the agenda is at 42 of our notes and relates to the minutes of the Audit Advisory Committee held on the 28th of May 2020. And it is the officer's recommendation that Council receive the attached minutes of the Audit Advisory Committee meeting held on Thursday, 28 May 2020. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Resolution passed. Thank you all. Item 7.3 on the agenda is the delegations to the Chief Executive Officer under the Water Regulation 2016 and Disaster Management Act 2003 at 49. Council subscribes to a delegation update service provided by McDonald's Law, and Council has been advised that the following legislation has been revised and delegations to be updated accordingly. 1. Water Regulation 2016, Queensland. 2. Disaster Management Act 2003 for Queensland. The officer's recommendation is that pursuant to Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009, Council, 1, delegate the exercise of powers contained in Schedule 1 of the instrument of delegation attached to this resolution as appendices to the Chief Executive Officer. These powers must be exercised subject to any limitations contained in Schedule 2 of the attached instrument of delegation. And 2, that we repeal and prior resolutions delegating the same powers to the Chief Executive Officer. Mr. CEO, can we pass that as one resolution? We can. Right, do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froelich, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Is there any discussion in relation to that? Anyone that wishes to speak for or against that delegation? Okay, all in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 7.4 4 on the agenda relates to the LGAQ annual conference and calling for motions to be presented at the conference. It is at 59 of our notes, and the background is such that the LGAQ annual conference brings together all Queensland councils to discuss issues of importance to local communities. The conference is an important opportunity for councils to network, learn and debate and vote on new policy. The conference is also attended by state and federal government representatives, external stakeholders and the media. Industry suppliers participate in a large trade exhibition to showcase their latest offerings to local government leaders from across the state. It is the office's recommendation that South Burnett Regional Council resolve to submit resolutions to the 2020 Local Government Association of Queensland Annual Conference, and we have, I believe, Mr. CEO, 2 resolutions to present, do we not?
Mr. Mayor, we've received recommendations from Councillor Duff for 2, which would be on roadside grazing and wild dog bounty. So what the process is today is that council gives us the topics or the items that they wish to raise, and then we will put that into the format for submission to the LGAQ. So we've already got those 2 suggested. The recommendation was left blank because not to preempt the meeting, to see what was raised off the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Duff, could you please present those 2 suggestions to the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first one is that we lobby the state government to waive the adjustment charge for roadside grazing in regions that are drought declared. So I know in the last, we've been on this bandwagon for quite some time. We always get blamed for charging adjustment during drought times when it's actually, we're just collecting it on behalf of the state government. So the last time that we wrote on quite a number of occasions, we've actually written to the Premier's Department, and they're saying that it would take, they'd have to change legislation. Well, we want them to change. I believe that we should start the process of trying to get them to actually change legislation to make that happen. So that's the first one. Did you want me to outline the second one as well? Okay, the second one is that the wild dog bounty be consistent across all local government areas to encourage people collecting the bounty to stay in their own region and not go across borders. This will help councils to get a better understanding of the number of wild dogs being caught in their region. It is also fair, I believe, that the dogs caught in the local government area should be paid for in that area. And I've done some research, and North Burnett Regional Council, the bounties, was of December last year. North Burnett Council is $20, Somerset Regional Council is $20, Toowoomba Regional Council is $30, South Burnett Regional Council is $35, and Western Downs is $50. So I think if we got consistency across all of our regions, that would stop people would encourage people to trap in their own area for a start, and also stop them from, if there's a higher bounty in another area, to actually take the scalp somewhere else. So they're my 2 recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councillor Duff, if you could move that those recommendations be received, we'll then seek a seconder.
I so move. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Vote on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of recommendations as well for consideration. Do we need to vote?
Yes,
on
well,
these
we'll
ones
come back.
first?
Can we come
Sure.
back to those, or put them through as one? We can do either. Okay, well, we'll take those as well if you'd
Yeah,
like to put
sure.
those forward. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to add lobbying the state government for the waste levy. My understanding is the levy was a funding instrument to be invested into technology that supports waste management, and I understand the state was considering increasing the levy as of July 2020, but that had been deferred due to COVID. So my concern is that the funds raised by the state are not being invested back into appropriate waste management practices fit for the future. And I believe there's enormous opportunities in waste that local governments need the funds to investigate the feasibility of these into the future. I'm very mindful of the landfill provisions that weigh heavy on our financial performance. and as a region, a need for a waste management strategy that does not create legacy issues for the next generation.
Councillor Schumacher, if you could just move that they be put forward to the meeting. Thank you.
I move that my recommendations be put forward for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Do we have a, we have already have a seconder for that? Oh, yes. Oh, right. Sorry, no, there's no need to move that. Sorry. Can we build that into the one resolution for the 3 items? Does any councillor wish to speak for or against those one or more of those 3 items?
Just, Mr. Mayor, just so that when we record it in the minute, so it's the reduction or removal of the state waste levy, or just a reworking of the state waste levy? Reworking, yep. So if we add reworking of state waste levy, and then we can, get the detail. Yep. Thank you.
Right. So we have the resolution is that council submit resolutions to the LGAQ conference in relation to those 3 matters that have been recommended this morning by Councillors Duff and Councillor Schumacher. All in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Of the Local Government Regulation 2012 monthly financial report, including capital works, road maintenance expenditure, and works for Queensland Q3, as at 21 May 2020, be received and noted. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. All in favour? Thank you all. Passed unanimously. Item 7.6 on the agenda is the Procurement Policy Review, scheduled for this meeting, June 2020. Now, the Procurement Policy and the recommendation is at 164, page 164. Council conducts its procurement and contracting activities to advance the strategic priorities and the outcomes of the corporate plan, whilst achieving value for money with probity and accountability. In doing so, Council must meet its legislative obligations under the Local Government Act 2009 and the Local Government Regulation 2012. A procurement policy is an important element in risk management. Council must prepare and adopt a procurement policy, including details of the principles that the Council will apply in the next financial year for purchasing goods and services, and review its procurement policy annually under the Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 198. It is the officer's recommendation that the South Burnett Regional Council Procurement Policy Statutory-007 be adopted as presented. Do we have a councillor to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Right. Well, as I said, the procurement policy is contained in your notes. I believe councillors have had an opportunity to consider such. I'll now ask for councillors wishing to speak to the matter. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the policy, and I've already outlined this, copied the councillors into my concerns, was in the current policy, anything below $2,000 where there is no need for a quote could all be purchased from the same supplier without any other business getting a chance, and I've had complaints about that. And in the current policy, anything below 2,000, whether it's and between 2 and 5,000, there is only a need for one quote, and there again, you could the council staff could just get it from the same supplier continuously. So I did bring that to the attention of the general manager, and the response was, and we've now added an additional clause, and I just wanted to highlight that and make sure that everyone was thinks that that has actually covered off on that concern, because I think it is a real concern that we probably don't share it around enough, and the The additional insert is council officers are required to adequately test the local market for each procurement activity, ensuring that local suppliers are provided a fair and reasonable opportunity to tender for council business opportunities. So that's been inserted to cover off on trying to encourage our staff to share it around, to actually give opportunities for other businesses to quote, and not just and we all fall into that same habit. You know, you start to build a relationship with a business owner. It works for you, and you don't actually go out and spread the opportunities around. So I just wanted to highlight that and make sure that as we move forward, that is encouraged throughout our organisation to give everybody a chance to quote and to share that opportunity for business equity around. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do we have any other councillors wish to speak? I might just speak to the matter. Councillor Duff certainly raises some good points, and of course, council has discussed this at portfolio briefings quite extensively. Hence, the insertion of the clause in the policy that speaks to the need for council officers to adequately test the local market for each procurement activity, ensuring that local suppliers are provided a fair and reasonable opportunity. In addition to that, under 4.2.2 of the policy, which speaks to open and effective competition, the policy states that council suppliers, contractors and the public must have confidence in the outcomes of the purchasing process. This involves adequately testing the market to ensure all options and suppliers are considered equally. My point being that the policy, I believe, provides a very rigorous framework which clearly demonstrates within which staff can operate, in clearly demonstrating this council's wish that local suppliers are given every opportunity to be part of council's purchasing process in a fair, open and equitable manner. In addition to that, of course, council has moved in changing the policy this year such that, of course, as previously though, from $0 to $2,000, where we have established arrangements through our pre-qualified suppliers system, no quote is required, but they are required to seek and source locally where applicable. From $2,000 to $5,000, a minimum of one written quote, sourced from local supplier, and from 5,000 we've now increased that to 15,000. So previously up to 15,000 could go outside. Now what we're saying is a minimum of 2 written quotes to include local suppliers available when using the South Burnett Regional Council established arrangements. Now, of course, let's be clear that, of course, where there are no local suppliers able to supply as such, then, of course, in accordance with the policy, our staff will be required to go outside the region to access those supplies. So I just wanted to clarify those couple of points. And they are, as I said, amendments that have been made to the policy this year, but are clearly with an intent from council to provide local suppliers with every opportunity to be part of that purchasing process. Right, well, does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree, and I thank and acknowledge the work that's gone into this policy. I know it's a rigorous framework. Probably more of a question for, through you, Mr. Mayor, for CEO Mark. Just what's the review for this policy? Will we review it again in 12 months' time?
In normal circumstances, council, it's reviewed annually with the budget process. So, Mr. Mayor, if I just may make one comment, and I appreciate and there's certainly an intent, a great intent to purchase locally, but that's also tempered by good procurement practices. One complaint that's just recently come across my desk from a local supplier, and when we've tested it, that local supplier was 50% above the market. Now, we will work with people and we will discuss it, but there will still be good procurement practices. That means that not everyone will win a prize every time. So we will, and it's a cultural issue within our organisation that we're continuing to push, that people purchase locally, test the market, everyone gets an opportunity. And I think that's particularly where the council's coming from, is that people are afforded the opportunity totally. But there has been occasions, and we're not the only organisation that has this trouble with local procurement, is that sometimes it's very difficult to get people to quote. And also they get very tired of quoting if they don't win every time because of price or another region. But just because someone is a local supplier, they still have to have, I suppose the old term is, if I could sharpen their pencil, there still has to be proper procurement practices in place.
Yeah, thank you, CEO Mark. And clearly what CEO Mark is demonstrating is indicating there that while we certainly want to make sure that our local suppliers get every opportunity, we also have an obligation to our ratepayers to make sure that they are getting value for money when we exercise these procurement practices. Right, do we have anyone else that wishes to speak for or against the motion? So the motion is that we accept the South Burnett Regional Council Procurement Policy and it be adopted as presented. All in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Moving on to item 7.7 on the agenda, which is the investment policy for 2020/2021 at 180. So Section 104 of the Local Government Act 2009 requires local governments to establish a system of financial management to ensure it is financially sustainable. One of three policies required in the system of financial management is the investment policy, and is particularly mentioned at Section 104(5)(c)(1) of the Act. These policies must be regularly reviewed and updated as necessary. Section 191 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 outlines the requirements of the investment policy. Item 2, that the investment policy must outline A, the local government's investment objectives and overall risk philosophy, and B, procedures for achieving the goals related to investment stated in the policy. The following policy has been reviewed and developed for council consideration and will be reviewed annually or amended as required. The officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council Investment Policy 2020/2021 statutory-009 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Right. If not, all in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 7.8 on the agenda relates to the debt policy for 2020/2021 at 188. So Section 104 of the Local Government Act 2009 requires local governments to establish a system of financial management to ensure it is financially sustainable. One of three policies required in the system of financial management is the debt policy, and is particularly mentioned at Section 104(5)(c)(2) of the Local Government Act 2009. These policies must be regularly reviewed and updated. The Local Government Regulation 2012 at Section 192 requires the debt policy to be prepared and adopted for a financial year, and the policy must state the new borrowings for the current financial year and the next 9 financial years. The following debt policy has therefore been reviewed and developed for council consideration. The proposed borrowings for the current year plus the next 9 financial years have been formulated to support the financial needs of council to achieve the long-term asset management plan. All new borrowings have been factored into the long-term financial forecast. The policy, of course, the debt policy has been provided to all councillors, and all councillors, I believe, have reviewed such. And so it's the officer's recommendation that the South Burnett Regional Council debt policy, statutory 010, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Fryloff, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Right. Is there any councillor wishing to speak for or against the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just probably more of a note that these are significant projects in the pipeline, and to acknowledge the work that's gone into the asset management strategy looking ahead. I understand there'll be continued discussions in council to look at other opportunities to minimise these borrowings going forward, and I'm just very much supportive of that approach in terms of continuing to challenge ourselves to find better ways. So like to acknowledge the work that's gone into this, and look forward to continued conversations in this space to minimise potential borrowings into the future if we can.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. If I can just reinforce Councillor Shoemaker's comments that our finance team and, of course, all of our general managers have been working particularly hard in relation to making sure that a council is certainly putting together a very sustainable long-term asset management plan, and in doing that, looking at strategies whereby council can, to a large extent, minimise the need to borrow. So this is a very conservative borrowing policy. There are no significant borrowings that have been built into the policy. As I said, it is there. It certainly will. It will be available for public viewing on council's website. Is there anyone else that wishes to make comment in relation to the policy or speak for or against such? Right. If not, we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Right, now it's an opportunity for me to have a bit of a break from the microphone. I'm going to now hand over to Councillor Jones. Item 8.1 on the agenda at 196 is the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, it gives me great pleasure to present the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report for the month of June. Just a bit of an update in the works in progress. Construction and capital works, Alfred Street car park in Kingaroy, the rehabilitation of the car park, that's about to start in late June, early July, and that will be the first step in the transformation of the Kingaroy streetscape and the works that are going to unfold there now that we were successful with the funding from the federal government. So that's an exciting project to get underway, and the fellow councillors from the local area have been out and about talking to the businesses already, along with our staff, to have some consultation and preparations in regards to that. Brisbane Street, the drainage upgrade in the towards the base of the Nanango Hospital Hill, that has been completed, and that is a major improvement on that section of road. The flooding issues and all that sort of stuff should not be relevant unless we have tremendous downpours, but certainly never say never. The Mergen CBD, the footpath upgrade in Lamb Street, Mergen. I went through there the other day, and the appearance of the main street and the presentation of the town has certainly improved remarkably, and the comments that are coming back out of the businesses and all that sort of stuff and the community members of Mergen are phenomenal. So again, congratulations to the staff involved there. Harley Street in Wandai, the concrete footpath and retaining wall, that's nearing completion, expected to be in mid-June, towards the end of June. And that's just hooking up with the Bridge to Nowhere, as we referred it to, and that will continue up to Dan's Diner and all that sort of stuff. So another good section. Maidenwell Bunya Mountains Road, the realignment in Glencliff Wengenville intersection, earthworks, pavement and primer seal has been completed. That is a major improvement on that road. That was a dangerous corner. We're still working along with General Manager Meehan and a few other people from the main roads. We're trying to get the funding to complete the other 2.4 Ks that are missing up to the Bunya Mountains. So again, another great job there. Old Esk Road, the widen, overlay and seal, clearing complete, earthworks and pavement underway, expected completion late June. Now, I've been down there quite regularly. This piece of road, it's about 1.8 kilometres or thereabouts. It's been the missing link for a long period of time. It's right in front of one of our main attractions for tourism in Toromeo Station. And again, they can't believe that we're suggesting that we're going to complete this job by late June, but every time they ring me, people down there are keeping an eye on it for me, and they're ringing just completely amazed at the progress that our crews are making down there, and it'll be a wonderful improvement. Stebbins Street in Kingaroy, upgrade to bitumen seal standard. That construction crew, they plan to mobilise on completion of Old Esk Road and expected late June, mid-July to start there. That's out near Ken Mills, and that'll be another improvement for a great business and contributor to our economy here in Kingaroy, and in Ken Mills Toyota, and Ken's contributed to that project. So that's another one. So there you go. There's half a dozen or more really, really good significant programs that are well underway or completed in our region. The gravel resheeting and heavy formation grade, we've got Benin Road, Dangle Mountain Road, Flats Road, Haynes Kite Miller Road, Kangaroo Yard Road, Monjur Crossing Road, Morgans Road, Nanango Noongar Road, Old Esk North Road, Regan Road, Reeves Road, Robin and Lee Road and Wilson's Road. Now these are all gravel resheet programs, heavy formation, so we should expect a major improvement on those roads. So they'll be all completed by the end of June, early July, and their work's in progress. Patrol grading, localities, we've got Bonaire, Gordon Brook, Highsville, Inverloch, Kinleymore, Cumbie and Yoomga, Oakenden and Pimpinbungie and Proston. Now there's a whole list of roads there that are going through patrol grading, and again I must comment and commend the crews that are out there, men and women on the ground, and the plant operators doing a wonderful job. The roadside slashing and boom mowing, numerous places all across from Banarka North all the way through to Romeo, Wheatlands, Warroondin, and all the way across our region. Our storm damage, this is a very important one that I want to speak to a bit. Council has submitted a funding submission for the Queensland Reconstruction Authority relating to the storm damage occurring in February 2020 on our road network. The submission contained approximately 70 roads affected with a cost estimate of $3 million. Now, Mr Mayor, we get hammered when these sort of incidents occur, because if we go out and we touch these roads up, because they have been created by storm damage, we cannot make a claim to the state government. If we touch them in any way, shape or form, we automatically or pretty much lose any sort of funding we can get. It certainly, and because we don't react immediately, we get hammered in the press, we get hammered in the community on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So a $3 million cost, if we went out to fix all them, it would be on the ratepayers. And I know we need to get this communication out a bit better and whatever through the community, but we need the community to understand that we as a council, and this is where the ruckus, if I take you back about 3 years and we spent $35,000, and it's the best $35,000 I think we've spent in council since I've been a part of it. It gives you an indication. We have all the roads on computer, and the guys can sit there and they have a before and after, and we take it to the state government and we can prove that this was a condition of the road before the storm, now this is a condition after. So the ruckus has certainly been a well worth investment, but that is a major thing that people need to understand. And we did get hammered in February, and we went out, and yes, we can touch up little things, but we can't fix them and still make the claim. So these guys, our staff, general manager, all the staff that are internal, they do a wonderful job. Now that $3 million in February 2020 could have been taken if we had responded immediately like people needed to. That would have come out of the rate base, and it's a huge cost. So we need people to understand that there is a reason why it takes a little bit longer after storm damage to get that all sorted. Summary of completed works for May, gravel resheeting and heavy formation. We had Burt Road, Couchins Road, Gayndah Highsville Road, Millions Road and Mustons Road. They were all gravel resheet and shoulder repairs. Patrol grading, again, right across the region, Bonaire, Brooklands, Chelmsford, Hodgeley, Keysland, Cumbia, Mount McEwen, Yoomga, South Nanango, Wheatlands, Wandai. And again, with the roadside slashing and boom mowing, we go across Barkers Creek Flat, Brooklands, Chipinga, Coolabunnya, Crownthorpe, Glendevon, Highsville, Hodgeley, Merlewood, Monjur, Mount McEwen, Oaksdale, Tabinga, Windra, Warroondin. So again, Mr Mayor, I would like to make comment, as I always do on my presentation every month, that our staff are doing a wonderful job, both internal and external. And I keep saying that the roads are improving, and people out there still say that they're not. I'm happy to take any conversation and talk to people if they have any issues with the roads. And I think we're doing a wonderful job. We're 2 or 3 years into this process, and I expect big improvements this year on our road network in the coming budget. And it's a continual works in progress, and the hard work's been done, and I think our crews will capitalise on it in the next 12 months. And that's when I expect the community to really acknowledge the work that's been undertaken by the previous council and this council here. So, Mr Mayor, I would just like to move that my June report for roads and drainage be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Froeloff. And can I just speak to the report and reinforce, I suppose, the acknowledgement that Councillor Jones has provided. The work that's been undertaken across the road network has been a significant amount of work in a short period of time. I know the new councillors and myself, in coming into council, have come to realise that there's been a significant amount of resources, energy, time put into the development of the road network over the last 2 years. I would like to congratulate Councillor Jones, General Manager Aaron Meehan, and all the staff involved in the infrastructure team who've been part of that process, right through to the people out there on the machinery doing the work. I have myself received a tremendous amount of positive feedback in the last 2 months since joining council as to the condition of the road network. And if I can just say in a bit more of a casual manner, that I've had some of the old road workers that were involved back in the Shire Council days say to me, "We've never seen the roads look so good." They're actually, in many cases, better than what they were back in the old Shire Council days. They are not my words. These are fellows who've worked for decades on the road network across the Shire Councils of the region. That, to me, is the ultimate testament to the quality of work that's being done and the amount of resources and the amount of money this council is putting into the road network right across the region, particularly with the focus on, in recent years, the gravel resheeting program that's been occurring. The quality of these gravel roads now, I've been told by people who move across the state, are second to none in Queensland. For the roads that have been resheeted, the quality of the work, the quality of the resheeting program is right up there. And these roads, I had one old fella say to me yesterday, some of these roads are like driving on highways now, or better than our highways in some cases. You know, they really, really are that good. So, General Manager Meehan, to you and your team, thank you very much. And on behalf of the community, Councillor Jones as well, thank you. And just before handing back to Councillor Jones, I would like to also to acknowledge and congratulate former Mayor Keith Campbell and the former council, along with the infrastructure team and everyone involved, including our local member, our minister, our federal members, our Minister David Littleproud, for all the work that they've done in ensuring that council was successful after 3 attempts at accessing the $4.7 million under the Building Better Regions Fund. As I have said before, this was heavily oversubscribed. For our region to get access to $4.7 million was no mean feat, and was due to the hard work that was undertaken by former Mayor Keith Campbell and his former council. We can't thank them enough. We will now, this council will obviously have the benefit of seeing that come to fruition, but also a lot of thanks must go to all the people involved in General Manager Meehan's team that made this a success. It was an absolutely tremendous effort. And of course, you know, other projects like Brisbane Street. I believe, Councillor Fryloff, we've received an overwhelming degree of support from the community for the wonderful work that was done by the crew down there. The Mergen CBD is progressing. I was down there only the other day. It's progressing. The quality of that surface now, again, is second to none. It is really, really top class. We've got, you know, the 2.4 Ks at the Bunyas, and also, of course, the Old Esk Road work. There's some really, really tremendous projects. These projects don't happen without a significant amount of work. There's a really, really lot of work that goes into planning, designing this work, and also, of course, you know, Department of Transport and Main Roads and other government departments have, you know, competing priorities, and it takes a lot for our council to get these projects on the agenda and get them completed. So well done to all. I know that the community are very grateful for your work. So I'll just hand back to you now, Councillor Jones, to provide some additional commentary on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I keep forgetting this this little recognition. I do want to say it sounds like we're all in here backslapping each other and all that sort of stuff, and it may come across like that to some of the community members. But can I just say, I always say that, I forget to say it, and I've always got to come back and say it. We are not perfect, but we're getting very close to it. We are still making little mistakes out there, and but the work that our staff are doing has come leaps and bounds, like 200-300%. And can I just say, Mr. Mayor, that the recognition that you've just given to the previous mayor and other staff and all that sort of stuff is certainly well deserved. And if there's anything that Mr Campbell should be remembered for, should be the transformation of the Kingaroy CBD. So well done.
Yes, absolutely, agree completely, Councillor Jones, and could also just reinforce what Councillor Jones has said. To the members of the community and to the press who will be listening to this, we fully understand that this is a work in progress. General Manager Meehan, with our CEO Mark Pitt, and also Councillor Jones are on a journey here. We are into our third year of the resheeting program. The plan is to move into from there. Attending to those sealed roads, so the real sealing of a number of those sealed roads that form part of our network, and then ultimately moving into, in latter years, throughout the term of this council, the sealing of some of those high priority gravel roads that exist across our network. So we can't, Rome wasn't built in a day. This won't all be achieved overnight. We are into year 3 of a long-term program, but what I can certainly say to the community is our council and our team have, for a few years now, been working very, very hard to bring up to speed a road network that was a long way behind where it needed to be. We are dealing with many, many years of work here in a short period of time. So it really has been a tremendous effort. But to the community, please understand that we acknowledge that there is still work to do, and that we'll be continuing to work hard, as I know the staff will be, to make sure that that network continues to improve. Now, of course, the benefit to council and to the community and to the ratepayers is that, as General Manager Meehan has often pointed out, once this road network is up to the standard that it needs to be at, the operational costs of then maintaining the network will be significantly reduced. So then we can start to redirect funding into other areas associated with our footpaths and those sorts of programs. Okay, so this will reap dividends for council. The investment will reap dividends. There's no doubt about that. So General Manager Meehan, who's here today, thank you very much for your tremendous work. We're all very grateful for what you've done, and we know that you fully understand that there's a lot more work to do yet. So thank you. General Manager Meehan, would you like to provide comment? We'd certainly like to hear from you.
No, you're right, Mr. Mayor. If I may, just through you, there's a lot of credit coming through to the management team. I really just want to acknowledge the work that happens on the ground with our staff. The stuff that you see on the ground is purely a result of their work. I don't drive the graders. My managers don't drive the graders. It's the team there, but also right through our office too with our design team. The work that goes on there to get planning and stuff right. We have a lot of improvements that we want to make over the next coming year, but there is a method to the madness, and I think the councils and the community are going to see some benefits over the short and long term. But just want to acknowledge the work that does go on through the office and through the staff on the ground, and also our water and sewage staff as well, who are doing a wonderful job. It is a good team, and council is very, very lucky to have the staff that they do.
Yes, Ken, if I once again, for the benefit of the community, just acknowledge that again, the waste and the water and sewerage guys. We had a visit from some consultants recently in relation to the water study, and having spoken to our technical staff at the water treatment plant, they were absolutely blown away, if I could use that term, at the level of technical competence and technical knowledge that exists in the small region of the South Burnett. Coming from Brisbane, they couldn't believe we had such smart people working in our water treatment system. So that was a real pat on the back to Steve, Aussie Steve and the guys. And to the community, we have got some really good quality people looking after our region. So thank you to them as well. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mayor Otto, and I agree with all the comments that have been made. It's fabulous. I just wanted to speak to the Alfred Street car park project. Councillor Potter and I did spend some time last week with the infrastructure team. I just wanted to thank and acknowledge the infrastructure team. That was a really great opportunity to hear from local businesses in Kingaroy Street and gather their feedback about the project and how the works would proceed. So sort of taken a leaf out of Councillor Duff's book in terms of talking with local CBD about the works underway, and I understand a lot of consultation happened in the Mergen Footpath redevelopment project. So it was great to go out with Councillor Potter and to gain that feedback firsthand, and we have forwarded all of those comments onto the infrastructure team for consideration in the project. So thank you. I'm very excited about that project. Once it gets started, I almost fell in a pothole at the back of the in the car park and managed to climb my way out. So I'm very excited about that project. It's going to be a great start to what's to come here in Kingaroy, the regional centre of the South Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and of course, must acknowledge the work that's been done there and the planning there. But of course, also council through General Manager Meehan, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes at the moment in terms of forward plan, in terms of our asset management planning in relation to the redevelopment of the footpaths right across the regions of the communities of the South Burnett that are yet to see that happen. So I would say to the people of the community, watch this space. General Manager Meehan and his team are doing a lot of work. Not just, we have done Proston and Mergen, and now Kingaroy will be getting an opportunity to go through the same process. I know there's been a lot of learning in that space, but I do believe, Councillor Duff, that we have a very happy community in Mergen in terms of the way in which that has been managed so well, so successfully, so cooperatively. But rest assured that this council will not take our eye off the ball when it comes to maintaining a focus on an importance of the development of those footpaths right throughout the CBD areas of every community, including the smaller communities of Cumbia and alike. Right, well, thank you, Councillor Jones. That was an excellent report, and it's just amazing to see how much work is being done out there on the ground by the roads and drainage crew. So we've had Councillor Jones's report, and we'll put that to the vote. All in favour of the acceptance of such? Good, thank you. Report passed unanimously. Right, now item 8.2 on the agenda is at 197, and it is in relation to the asset management plans for transport, building, natural resource management, parks, wastewater and water asset classes. So the asset management plans have been developed to assist council with balancing the financial, operational and risk constraints on the delivery of services to the community. The asset management plans cover the following items around delivering outcomes for the community, being financial planning and management, service planning and management, asset planning and management, data and information management. The various asset plans set out to demonstrate that council is at or approaching a core status in asset management maturity for the various asset classes. The officer's recommendation is that council adopt the following asset management plans: transport asset management plan, building asset management plan, natural resource management and parks asset management plan, waste asset management plan, wastewater asset management plan, and water asset management plan. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. If I could just open up a discussion in relation to these asset management plans, firstly by making it clear to everybody that these asset management plans are a significant part of council's core business. They provide the framework in which we can ensure, not only are they required by legislation, but provide a framework in which we can ensure that the resources, the community's assets are being managed in an effective and sustainable manner. The asset management plans through council, if passed through council today, will be available for public viewing. They have been made available to councillors and represent a significant body of work that has been undertaken by the relevant management across the departments of council in consultation with councillors. I would like to acknowledge and thank everyone involved in the development of these asset management plans. They are a significant part of council's core business, as I said, and provide a very important framework moving forward for the delivery of services across the region. Thank you. Right, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree. They put us up for a good future indeed, foundation for our future. I just want to acknowledge that these assets are owned by our shareholders, our ratepayers, and we as a council must continue to have the conversation with our community about the long-term sustainability of these assets, the levels of service required to meet and balance community expectations with council's capacity to deliver and affordability to pay. These plans are living documents not to be put on a shelf, but to be used as a tool to drive longer-term thinking and planning across the life of the asset and whole-of-life costs. Together with our community, we must make evidence-based decisions that consider the long-term financial sustainability of council and ensure the responsible maintenance and renewing of our assets into the future. Hence the need for a community plan, asset management plan that ensures these conversations continue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, councillor Schumacher. Do we have another councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely agree with what councillor Shoemaker has said. I think that by getting all of these plans, and there's a huge amount of work in what's been put forward to, councillors have all got a copy of individual asset management plans. This one is natural resource management and parks, but there's 7 or 8 there. And there's what it does is it gives us knowledge, and knowledge gives us power, because we finally, when we see these plans, we understand how many hectares of parkland we've got, how many, I don't think anyone realises the extent of the assets across our region, and it'd be really good to, if people got a chance to have a look at those, because I think they'd be amazed at what we do. And I know that even the General Manager of Infrastructure was surprised when he saw just how many hectares of parks and road verges that the Parks and Gardens staff maintain. So I just think it's a really good tool, and we should certainly not put them on a shelf, but use them and understand them and work. It's a great way forward to work to know what we have, and then work out the best way to manage all of those assets that we have for our region. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Duff. General Manager Meehan, would you like to provide some comment in relation to that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just want to make one comment if I could. One of the real key things around the asset management plan, and agree with what the councillors are saying, they are a platform for us. But one of the key things, and particularly for those people who read them, it is a plan for our organisation to improve. And I think that's a really big acknowledgement of what the purpose of an asset management plan is there. It's not to be the solution. It's really for us to take stock and outline how we can improve our organisation in asset management and sustainability.
Thank you, General Manager. And I can also say that the asset management plans have, certainly been, development of such has been an important learning process for those of us who are new to council, and really understanding the work that goes in behind the scenes in developing the hierarchy of needs, developing a process which allows council to make decisions that are what we would refer to as evidence-based decisions based on the collection of really significant data. So the process of making decisions when we start to look at projects, be it renewing assets, be it renewing and replacing assets, be it the actual development, upgrade of assets, or the installation of new assets, a lot of work goes in behind the scenes to collecting data, to analysing that data, to make sure that we are making those decisions based on the best evidence available. So these decisions might seem to be made by council in a fairly quick and easy manner, but let me assure you there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and a lot of that work I've just didn't realise how much community consultation and engagement goes into the work. The engineers and the people involved and the staff get out there and do a lot of work alongside councillors in engaging with the community in developing these asset management plans. So that when these projects are undertaken, they really are something that we know the community have been heavily involved in developing. So I think to make everyone aware that there is a significant body of work that goes into that. And in doing so, I think that enables council to then make sure that we are providing a broad, plans that broadly represent the needs of the region, from Proston in the north to Benarkin in the south, and from, across at Mergen in the east, and way out to the end of Division 6 for Councillor Henshin in the west. These plans represent the needs of people right across the width and breadth of our region, and I think that's a tremendous acknowledgement for a region of our size. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess it's an appropriate time to acknowledge both the councillors have spoken. And yourself with your constant comments of evidence-based decisions. The previous council's been waiting for these documents for a couple of years now, and we as elected members have got some serious decisions to make. These will give us the evidence and the documentation and the proof that what we say to the community is evidence-based, like you say. So when we have discussions on our asset management and all that sort of stuff, and we look to cut our assets down, we can go to the community and tell them the benefit of what we are actually trying to do as a council and maintain things and all the rest of it. So these documents are certainly things that we've been waiting for a considerable amount of time, and we have got some seriously hard decisions coming up. And me personally, I think there's a lot of assets out there that we need to look at and reducing. And now I know that's not going to sit too well with the community, but as a council, we've had strong debate in the previous council on this and reducing assets and that across the region. And I'll just use parks for an example. There is a large number of parks, and Councillor Duff has just alluded to the amount of grass and the high acreage that our parks and gardens have to maintain. Now, I'm a strong believer that parks are an essential part of the community, and whether or not we need the amount that we have, I would like to see council put their resources into having 2 or 3 or 4 major, like Kingaroy for an example, 4 major parks, and really concentrate on those 4 parks. Just as an example, and I'm just using 4 as a number, but like Memorial Park, really make that a centrepiece of Kingaroy. Really concentrate on that and reduce your levels of parks. Now, that's just an example. I'm not targeting that or whatever, but I'm just saying that that's the sort of thing that this council needs to take into consideration moving forward. Budgetary costs and all that sort of stuff, and the restrictions of COVID and all the rest of it, and what people expect of council to do. These documents, we have been waiting for these for a couple of years, and I am so glad they're on the table now, because they will prove what we've been talking about in council for a couple of years. This council has some strong and hard discussions and decisions to make, so I just hope everybody's prepared for the coming conversations.
Yeah, they are really important points you make, Councillor Jones, that we as a rural regional council, face significant challenges in terms of funding the expectations and in many cases the needs of our communities. But that can only be done effectively when we've got good data. It can be only done effectively when we've got good governance. Good governance is based on obviously community engagement, but on evidence-based decision making. Now, that is incumbent upon us as the elected representatives. And, if you were running a business, you would be making your decisions on data that is going to give you the outcome that you're looking for. We are looking for outcomes that are going to ensure that the people across the breadth of our region, irrespective of where they live, are given access to the resources, the assets, the community assets, provide them with the lifestyle, the prosperity that we'd like to see for our region and that we believe they're entitled to. So yes, very much so. They are going to be hard decisions that we have to make, but the data is going to be there to make them. And in some cases that will mean that we are going to still provide the services, but perhaps looking at how we can provide them more effectively, more efficiently. At the end of the day, we are custodians of ratepayers' money. We have a responsibility to make sure that these decisions are made under those principles of good governance and are made in a way which we can certainly hold out to the community are the result of the appropriate, as I said, data collection and analysis. So they are going to be difficult decisions, but with the support of these documents, I think we're much better positioned to make the right decisions moving forward. Councillor Duff.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I agree with everything that's been said, but I also wanted to flag the community consultation because I think that that's a big part of it, and I think that you make tough decisions, but certainly if you have the community fully aware of what's going on, that you can take them with you and the community can be part of the whole process. And I think that's a big part of what we do, that we actually consult with the community. And sometimes where it looks to be, you might have something that you think you're going to have to reduce, and sometimes you can actually make a better decision and get better outcomes for the community with consultation. So I'm just wanting to flag that we really, really need to get that right. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And I think that I've certainly come to see over recent months that we have a new council, a council who sitting in this chamber today who are very committed to community engagement, very committed to transparency, very committed to good governance, and very committed to making sure that we are listening to the people of the region when we make very important decisions about how we use their assets. Councillor Jones.
Yes, Mr Mayor, through you, I just want to respond to that quickly. I 100% agree with Councillor Duff. You go to community consultation, but when we make decisions on assets and whatever else, you need to be able to explain to the community out there what the by what we're doing and what the benefits are, to explain and tell them the true benefits moving forward, and your region will get this or get that or whatever, and you need to explain that, and I totally 100% agree. Go out to consultation. And sometimes you can have too much consultation because it creates just confusion. Totally agree with the consultation, don't get me wrong. But we have to have the conversation where if we were to cut an asset, we need to be able to go to the community and say, right, if we cut this, we're going to save this amount of money, but we're going to be able to turn Memorial Park, for instance, into an absolute gem. This is a benefit of what you've got to have those conversations. So more than happy to have consultation, don't get me wrong. I'd love a chat, don't worry about that. So all good.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and I agree with the conversation here today. I do also agree with the approach to streamline, simplify and ensure we're spending every dollar wisely when we're looking at our assets. And I do agree that at the moment I do feel from what I've seen that we are trying to do too much and that we don't have the funding that supports that into the future. And so I understand there are going to have to be some difficult discussions across our community, and I very much welcome the opportunity to be a part of that and ensure that we are setting our region up to be the envy of many. We've got a great opportunity to make sure that we are spending the money and the finite resources that we have into the things, into the projects and activities that will really make a difference. So I'm fully supportive, and I'd like to acknowledge GM Meehan and the team, as well as GM Omay and Jarvis for the work that's gone into these documents. It really does set us up to have these discussions and make informed decisions into the future. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. And can I just say that, I've got an instinctive feeling that the 2020s are going to be a good period. It hasn't been a great start with COVID, but hasn't our region done well in the way we've managed COVID? It's a credit to everybody across the region. Having said that, I was out and about in the community over the course of the weekend, and I don't think there was a town in Kingaroy, there wasn't a car park in Kingaroy. So I then went out to the other towns, and it was the same scenario. There were people moving around the region. Good to see, as our country people do. Their social distancing practices were quite good, but there were people moving through the shops, spending money, mixing our communities. I then went to the southern end at Blackbutt and couldn't get a car park to go and get myself a hot pie. So wasn't that a tremendous result? The park was full of people. It was really great to see people moving the community. There's a good feeling in the community at the moment. There's a positive vibe out there about the prospects for this region moving forward. We are 2 hours from everywhere. We are becoming increasingly acknowledged by our city and coastal cousins as a wonderful destination, not just to travel into and tour around, but also to live in. And I think if we can start to move forward with another lot of the industrial development plans that we've got for the region, supporting the agricultural economy, supporting food processing, making our communities livable through these asset management plans, I think we are, as a council, in a very good time, and we have the opportunity now to enable this region to fulfil its potential and to become much more prosperous than we've seen for a long, long time. So looking forward to the 2020s, looking forward to the term of this council. Can also say, as I said before, these asset management plans will be up for public viewing. You can access them through council. You can access them through the website. They are there for people to see. And also reinforcing to the community that when we make decisions, be it about the upgrading, the installation of new assets, the removal of old assets that are no longer seen by the community to be necessary, that will happen with extensive consultation. Please be assured that our council does not just come out and rip out from underneath you assets that you feel are important to your community. We will be having those conversations with you, and where it can be demonstrated that these assets are important to the community and are utilised extensively by the community, then our council will support the maintenance and the ongoing development of those assets. However, we do have a responsibility, as Councillor Jones has said, to make sure that when we're spending ratepayers' money, we are doing so in a responsible manner and making sure that the ratepayers are getting value for money. And sometimes that means that if we have assets that aren't being utilised, by the community, well, then we have to look at where can we better direct that funding. So on both sides of the chamber, there's been some really good points made. And I think importantly, though, that community consultation is something that we're all committed to, and we'll make sure that happens. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one last comment, and then I think I'll be finished for the day. I just want to make mention, we've had a pretty successful week, somewhere around about the vicinity of 8 to 10 million fell into our laps just recently. 4.7 going to the transformation, and you've mentioned in your report this morning the other monies that we received. And people may think that that's an absolute bonus and all that. It is, but it can be and could be a disaster if this council hadn't had the discussions that we've had and decided to spend the money how we're going to spend it if we're successful with the applications of the federal and state governments. Now, that money will go towards maintenance and clearing backlog on existing buildings and all that sort of stuff that we would never have been able to get to for years. And we as a council have had strong debate on that, and I think I'm very happy how the money's going to be dispersed across the region, and that's something that we may need to get out to the community and tell a strong story about and explain to the community, as I just said, the benefits to the whole region, not just sections of the town. So, yeah, we have been very successful. We have been very lucky, but we could have went either way. We could have been a disaster and built new buildings and all sorts of new things right across the region. And here we are talking about reducing assets or looking at assets and all that sort of stuff. We didn't have the need to create new assets at this stage because we have too many failing assets that need a lot of maintenance. They're on a backlog list and have been for a number of years. And that's what has enabled this council to do what they're going to do in the future. Fingers crossed that we are successful with the application to the Fed. So a lot of people out there see the money, see all the reports, but they say, oh, we need this, we need that. Why didn't we get a new toilet here, new this and all the rest of it? There's reasons for that, and that's a conversation we need to take to the community to explain to them the benefits of the decisions that we've made as a council, what it's going to mean to the region and the benefits on our budgets and all that moving forward. So it could have went either way. It could have been a good thing or a disastrous thing, but I think we've got it right.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I just clarify that what Councillor Jones there is referring to is the fact that over recent weeks we received the $3.3 million as a significant part of that the COVID Work for Queensland funding that the state government has provided in relation to the economic stimulus package around jobs for recovery. A couple of points there. We have been working in consultation with the community in developing the list that has now gone back to the state government, back to the department for approval. Should that be approved, we have 12 months from 1 July to then roll out those projects and programs across the region. And can I assure everybody that I've been very satisfied with the way in which this council has workshopped, has consulted the community, and then as a result, in a response to that consultation, has then workshopped across council. There's been a significant debate around the room in relation to the development of that list that we were only given a few days to develop. We were given basically a week and a half to get that back to the state government. It was submitted by the due date of last Friday. But I think when we get that approved list back, the community will see that the council, I think, has found a very good balance across the region and has very much attended to that hierarchy of needs. We've really focused in on those projects that are most important to the community in terms of the renewal and the development of assets across the region. In saying that, can I also acknowledge not also the federal government in the support that they provided our region in recent times in relation to a number of those funds that I mentioned in my report, but also to the state government. And can I just say here that the state government, I believe, acted with a strong degree of integrity in the way in which they allocated that funding. Now, we received $3.3 million, which was significantly more than many of the city and coastal regions. So I think it was very, I think the taxpayers will be pleased to see, I was pleased to see as a member of council, that our state government, our Premier, did not play politics with that money. They made the decision based on population and based on unemployment and based on the needs. And regional Queensland, if you look at that list, regional Queensland did, as the Premier promised she would, receive the lion's share of the money. And I think that was really, really encouraging to see from our state government. And I would like to certainly pass on our thanks to Minister Hinchcliffe as our Minister for Local Government in the work that he did and the work that our LGAQ did in ensuring that regional Queensland, that our council received that $3.3 million, and our community, our people are going to see the benefit of that. Right, okay, well, we've had significant discussion. I've almost lost my way. Thank you for that. We'll go back to where we were, which was to the resolution in relation to that council adopt the asset management plans as mentioned previously. All in favour? Thank you all. The resolution has been passed unanimously. Right, we will be breaking for morning tea at 10:30, which is in 5 minutes' time. So we'll move through to the next item on the agenda, which is item 8.3 at page 735 of our notes. And that item is in relation to a proposal that the waterway that crosses through Memorial Park be gazetted Memorial Creek to eternalise the commemorations of the 101st Remembrance Day and to acknowledge the memory of servicemen and women. Right. So a request has been received via email regarding the naming of the waterway that flows from Memorial Park. As stated, a commemoration of the 101st Remembrance Day. The creek would be named Memorial Park in acknowledgement of our servicemen and women. It is the officer's recommendation that the name Memorial Creek be given to the section of the waterway through Memorial Park. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay. Do we have any councillors who wish to speak for or against the motion? Okay. That being the case, all in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 8.4 at 7:38. The report addresses the request to name a new road within a development at 14471 Diaguila Highway in the Nango. The applicant has supplied 3 names as per the Infrastructure Asset Naming Policy, and the preferred name by the applicant is Lunar Rise. And access will be provided from Parsons Road, Nanango. It is the officer's recommendation that council adopt the name of Lunar Rise as the road name for the development at 14471 Diaguila Highway, Nanango, Lot 1 on registered plan 180937. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Right, in the absence of such, all those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 8.5 on the agenda is at 7:42. The Wide Bay Regional Organisation of Councils, WebRock, as it's known, grant application consists of installing a new flood warning stations, automated road flood warning signs, and flood depth markers at key locations. The purpose of this report is for council to allocate money in its 2020/2021 budget to undertake installation of automated road flood warning signs in the South Burnett. It is the officer's recommendation that council allocate $175,000 from its 2020/21 infrastructure budget to undertake the installation of automated road flood warning signs in South Burnett if the project proceeds with an external balance of funds. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henshin. Do any councillors wish to speak for or against? Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is I think this is a really, really important one. I've been absolutely pushing for this ever since 2008, because out in those areas, like on that Geelong Chinchilla Road, on the Proston Badooma Road, the Madubba Geelong Road, when the Stewart and the Boyne River flood, the council staff in a lot of instances cannot get out there. And in 2008, when I was actually campaigning to be on the amalgamated council, I actually was part of a situation where someone drove into the flooded creek on the Boyne River side, because once upon a time the Geelong store was open, and at that stage it had closed, and they used to put a sign up to say that there was water over the bridge, and because there was no one at the Geelong store and no one on that side was in a position to put up a sign, that they actually had come in not knowing the area and went straight into the Boyne River. And I happened to be on the other side, and we could hear that. I was in the car with my dad, and we could actually hear the noise. And the bloke was hanging in a tree, and the car was washed away, and we ended up getting the SES, and he was actually okay, but he lost his car. And ever since then, I've been absolutely paranoid about how we can get those signs out when there's no body out there, particularly the Geelong store. And it's the same on that Proston Badooma Road. Once the Stewart River goes under, that Boyne River Bridge goes under, there's no way anyone can get to it. Same on the Madubba Geelong Road. Near the Badooma Creek Bridge, both sides, there's nobody. So we went down the path of getting the fire brigades, and we've actually got that in place now, that the rural fire brigades have those signs and they can actually put them out. But this will be an added benefit, because then they're automated, and so when it gets to a certain height, they actually put the warning signs out. So I just think it's absolutely imperative that we support this and try and hopefully get the funding and matching funding or whatever it takes to make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And can I just clarify that in the report from the officer that the estimated cost for such will be $350,000, General Manager Meehan, and we're looking for council to contribute $175,000, with the other $775,000 to be contributed from external funds. And this has been the result of a significant body of work undertaken under General Manager Meehan by the infrastructure planning crew, and has been done in consultation through a joint effort with the other regional councils throughout the Wide Bay, as well as the BOM and DTMR and Sunwater. So a lot of work's gone into this in terms of providing the infrastructure around a series of flood gauges that cover rain and river. Automated flood warning signs and flood depth markers. General Manager Meehan, would you mind just perhaps providing a little bit more detail in relation to where the warning signs will be located? Have you got that there for us? I believe it's on the back of the report, but if you wouldn't mind just speaking to that for the benefit of council, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you, just to answer the first question, what would happen is that we would be happy to be corrected by the CEO, we'd be looking to make a joint partnership application to the Queensland Resilience Fund with the other Webb Rock councils. This has been a large project, which just want to acknowledge the work from Donna Brown and James Darcy as part of that group to work with the other councils to get this project to its status. What would happen is, if the project was successful through the Resilience Fund, we would bring back a further budget review for council to allocate their portion of that money in partnership with those councils. So just acknowledge the second part of your question, Mayor. On the report there, it highlights that the location of where these signs will be, they are all on DTMR roads. So what would happen there is council would make a contribution to the project in partnership with that funding, and then these assets would become the ownership of the Department of Transport at Main Roads, and they would take over the asset management and the long-term maintenance and replacement of these signs. So it is a very strong win project, provided that it gets up. We're always hopeful, but as the councillor said before, the location of these signs are on what we would consider to be high-risk locations within our region. For those who are unaware, our catchment here is actually the start of the Burnett, so everything that comes through here goes through to North Burnett into Bundaberg. So when you see significant flooding in Bundaberg and other areas downstream, a lot of that has predominantly come through high flash rainfall through our region. So as the council has said, some of these locations are very difficult to get to due to their locality coming from the west traditionally. So this would provide a good outcome for our people, particularly those who visit our region who are unaware of our landscape. So just well done to the staff to get it to this stage.
Thank you, General Manager Meehan. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and General Manager Meehan. I do think it's a great project and support what Councillor Duff has said. I really would like to acknowledge the work that's gone into the partnership with TMR and the opportunity that if this project is to get up, that it's my understanding the ongoing maintenance costs are covered by TMR, which is a great thing for our budget, definitely. And I definitely acknowledge the great work and the collaboration that's happened to bring this to the table. So fingers crossed we get the funding.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, well, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to acknowledge the work that General Manager Meehan and Donna Brown and that team have put towards this, because it would be a huge job to collate it all and to get it to as far as it has. So thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Duff. If there's no other commentary from Council, we will now put that to the vote. So the resolution is that Council allocate the $175,000 from the 2021 infrastructure budget for the installation of the automated flood warning signs in South Burnett. DTMR will be responsible for ownership and maintenance of the assets whole of life. All those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Right, well, it's been a very productive morning. It's now just past morning tea time. I would therefore move the motion that we resolve to close the meeting temporarily for morning tea and resume thereafter. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Henshin. All in favour, unanimously passed. We'll join everyone for morning tea. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Now move a resolution that we reopen the meeting. We have a second for that. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. All in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 9 on the agenda at 747, which is the portfolio report for community arts, heritage and sport and recreation. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Monday, the 25th of May 2020, South Burnett Libraries reopened to the public after closing due to the COVID-19 pandemic on Wednesday, the 25th of March 2020. As stipulated by Queensland Government guidelines, a maximum of 10 people were permitted in each library during the first week of opening. This number increased to 20 at noon on Monday, the 1st of June. During this time, library staff carried out scheduled cleaning of high contact services and encouraged patrons to use the sanitisation stations installed in each branch. Patronage has been steady, with many customers telling staff how glad they are that the libraries are open again. Many customers have remarked on the beautiful array of sunshine displays in each library, stating that the sunflower and yellow decorations are cheery and inviting. Although visitation was slightly lower than anticipated during the library's first open week, correctly processing returned library items in accordance with the ALIA guidelines ensured library staff were kept on their toes. During the first week opening, close to 3,000 items were returned across the region. A partnership with Western Downs Libraries for an e-resource consortia has seen South Burnett Libraries' catalogue of e-audio books expand greatly, with over 1,250 new titles available via the RB Digital app. The range of publishers available through the RB Digital means that there is an excellent selection of titles across all genres and subjects, with many accessible as multi-use borrowing, means there is no need to reserve or wait for your next favourite read. This arrangement with Western Downs has also provided a collection of e-magazines with many popular titles including Women's Weekly, Better Homes and Gardens and Australian Geographic, available to borrow from the comfort of your lounge chair. An added bonus with e-magazines is that they remain a permanent download on your device, which means that if you spot a handy recipe or pattern, you can keep it for as long as you'd like. The South Burnett, while the South Burnett Library's buildings were closed, staff worked behind the scenes to ensure a strong presence online and kept the library service connected with the community. Families tuned in to digital story time sessions, whilst the Be Connected tutorials educated viewers on the importance of e-safety and how to Skype and how to be connected with family and friends. The Kingaroy Library Write in the Moment program continued online, with authors including Tony Park and Shandy Boys providing writing tips and tricks to share with budding local authors. Staff also wrote reviews about the many library resources available online, including Borrow Box, e-books and e-audio books, and educational databases accessible via the library's website. To view the current content created during the COVID-19 closure, follow the South Burnett Library's Facebook page. In order to prepare for the reopening of the Blackbutt and Proston libraries, library staff carried out a mini makeover to provide better access to popular sections of the collection. In Blackbutt, additional DVD shelving was added, whilst in Proston, the junior section was relocated to allow more room for the adult fiction section. Feedback from customers about these changes has been very positive. Staff also carried out a stock rotation of adult fiction between the 6 library branches to ensure fresh stock was awaiting customers when they returned. Arts. It's fantastic news that South Burnett's own Olivia Everett was accepted to the Central Queensland Regional Arts Services Network Tough and Tender Beauty Artists at Home Residency Program. This is a signature project for CQ Rassen for the 2021 and will help profile the diversity of the regions and the importance of arts for creative response, resilience, recovery, memorialising and celebrating. Unite and Recover Start grant program opened on the 15th of June for grants up to $3,000 to support Queensland independent creative practitioners impacted by COVID-19. Please go to the Arts Queensland website for more information on this and other types of funding also available. And follow the CQ Rassen Facebook page for more information on upcoming events. The SB Arts Hour is also going strong, so if you'd like to be part of those conversations, please follow the South Burnett Arts Facebook page. Heritage. In the Kingaroy Heritage Museum, it now has the Queensland coat of arms that was gifted to the South Burnett Regional Council last year. It's up now in all its glory beside Sir Joe Bajocki-Peterson for all of our community to enjoy. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'd like to move that my Community Arts Heritage Sport and Rec Portfolio Report be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pollard. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Right, if I could just perhaps open a conversation in relation to this. We could all acknowledge the wonderful work that has been done by our library staff in what was fairly short notice, responding to COVID-19 and the required changes there, the audio books, the e-magazines, and just the online presence and the packages and programs that they delivered was absolutely tremendous. I'm sure I'm reflecting the views of the broad community who tapped into those services. What a wonderful learning process that was. And I no doubt Councillor Potter would set us up with a good platform moving forward, even post-COVID-19. Yeah, thank you. And of course, it's a new era, as I mentioned before. I believe that the 2020s, in my view, I've got an instinct that it's going to be a good period for our region, and no less so in relation to arts, the development of arts and culture across the region. I've come to see that we've got a wealth of talent in this space, and as we seek as council to work more closely with the relevant groups and coordinate that, I think we can really see the development of a rich arts and culture environment across our region. Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Potter. That was excellent. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, I just agree. I think there's plenty of opportunities in the art space for our region, and I'd just like to shout out to Olivia Everett. What a fabulous outcome for the region. She's really a champion of arts in the South Burnett, has done some incredible work and been a part of a number of projects. So just so great to hear. It's so great to hear that she can be a part of that residency, and it goes to show that there are plenty of opportunities here in the South Burnett region. Regardless of where you live, you can still, COVID has taught us that you can still access these things from afar. So just congratulations and thank you to Olivia Everett for her work in the art space and her continued commitment to our region.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And of course, Councillor Potter, thank you for your continued commitment to communities broadly, as well as including arts and culture. The LGAQ summit, we were attending that in a virtual sense yesterday, and some of the mayors from across the Queensland made reference to the fact that, you know, modern day councils are no longer just rates, roads and rubbish. They now provide a broad range of social services across their communities, and the work that you're really at the forefront of that for our region. So thank you very much for the wonderful commitment you provide to this, to your portfolio. Right, anyone else wish to make comment in relation to Councillor Potter's portfolio report? If not, we'll put that to the vote. Be accepted. All in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Right, item 10 on the agenda is 10.1 at 7:48 is the portfolio report on rural services, natural resource management, planning and compliance services. Thank you, Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Privilege I would give this report for my portfolio for this month of May, June. Start with the weed control and pest management contractors and staff. Treated 29 hectares of restricted and environmental weeds in May, including lantana, giant rat's tail grass, tree pear and mother of millions, and that's across the Burnett from Chelmsford, Fairdale and Coolabunya, the tree pear out in Highsville and the mother of millions on the main roads across the region. Splatter guns were loaned to landowners at Dangor, Ellesmere, Fairdale and Brooklands, and trailers were hired out at Tingura for the treatment of boxthorn. Wild dog and feral pig control, councillors, pest and stock root officers provided landowners with the loan of traps to control feral cats in the Wilkesdale and the South Anango area and wild pigs in the Proston area. Landowners were supplied with 132 wild dog baits. 4 inquiries, wild dog baits in Brooklands area. Landowners in the Stonelands area distributed 60 kilos of grain baits to manage the feral pigs. Council received 35 bookings for the June 1080 baiting program, 4 inquiries and 3 new landowners. In the rabbit control, Khaleesi virus was distributed in the Wattle Camp area, South Nanango, Kingaroy and Tabinga area to reduce rabbit populations. In the wandering livestock, Council received 8 requests to attend to wandering livestock across the region. No stock, though, were impounded in the month of May. Stock route grazing permits. At this point in time, no roadside adjustment applications were received during the month of May. That may change. Fire management, prescribed burns have been completed at Staines Road, Benarkin and the Maidenwell Reserve. Now, at the sale yard staff inspected a total of 1,135 and processed 1,061 head through the dip in May. A total of 511 head were sold through the Coolabunya sale yards. And planning post COVID-19, over the last couple of weeks, Council's planning department has been receiving an increased number of inquiries from the public regarding the use of land for income generating activities and value adding to their existing farming operations. Inquiries include the use of land for short stay tourist activities like bed and breakfast or farm stay operations and paddock to plate facilities for on-farm meat processing. Council is currently assessing a development application for the processing of up to 400 birds. These are squab pigeons per week and breeding and keeping up to 1,000 birds on site. The enterprise is aimed at producing meat products for human consumption and sale to wholesalers. This application is currently progressing through the application process and is available via the public notification process on Council's website. Council further received a number of inquiries about processing beef on site, where carcasses are delivered and processed on site and packaged meat is transported to market outside the region. The current planning scheme deals favourably with tourist accommodation in the rural zone, and most of these activities for utilising up to 5 bedrooms in an existing house or other accommodation facilities on site does not trigger planning approval. This provision is implemented to further allow farmers to accommodate up to 5 self-contained caravans or camping site on their properties without planning approval, provided no facilities, be it toilets, showers, camp kitchen, are provided. Public notification and digital newspapers. The development assessment and the DA rules currently require a notice to be published at least once in a newspaper circulating generally in the locality of the premises, the subject of the application. With the announcement of the South Burnett Times ceasing its print production soon, it's not clear if advertising via digital media meets the requirements of the DA rules, given that digital publications are often beyond a paywall and not readily accessible. Inquiries to the state's planning department confirmed that the state is aware of this issue, which seems to be a statewide issue at this point in time. The department confirmed that it is aware of this issue and is working on publishing a solution in the immediate future until a decision is available from the state. Applicants are reminded that public notices must appear in printed media meeting the requirements of the DA rules. And with that, Mr Mayor and fellow councillors and CEO, I'd like to move that my portfolio report for this month and recommend it be received.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Henson. We have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Duff. And certainly what a comprehensive report that was. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Clearly a lot of work happening across your portfolio.
Yes, Mr Mayor, can I just add, there's a couple of exciting things there. Who would have thought squab pigeons might have come on the agenda, and it's an interesting process, and I look forward to seeing where that progresses in time, but there's a little bit of initiative taken by some of our local residents in that, being another entity and a business within the Burnett. So that's an interesting scenario that we look forward to seeing how it furthers.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, Mr Mayor, through you. Excuse me. I'll just pass on a question I received yesterday for Councillor Henson to take on notice to get back Corellas out here on the highway, the Diagonal Highway property there. Blokes are ready to almost harvest corn, and the Corellas have nearly taken one strip of his corn crop along the highway. So he's claiming 5,000-10,000, and I saw them on the ground the other day, and they quite possibly could be. So just a question to Councillor Henson. He wanted to know, is there anything that he can do to, I guess, soften the impact that the Corellas have, or is there a way to eradicate them or something like that that's legal and above board?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Did you want to speak to that same matter, Councillor Shoemaker? Thank you.
Yes, just wanted to back up Councillor Jones' statements. I've also noticed around the Walters Road area and Somerset Street area here in town, the Corella population seem to be stripping a lot of the trees. So it would be great if we could look into that and come up with what options are available.
Yes, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just speaking from previous experience, being a rural producer myself, there is a process for that, and I mean we know how many Corellas there are at the moment in our local town, and certainly the rural producers in their corn and their crops receive huge damage. There are guidelines to follow, and I will look into it and bring it back to council, but in previous experience, with what you're allowed in permit applications sometimes doesn't necessarily solve or relieve the issue a great deal, but I will certainly look into it and report back to council with an update on it, but they are becoming quite a nuisance.
And of course, Councillor Henson, if we have any other rural producers, they can contact our customer contact team in council and pass that information through to yourself. Yep.
Mr Mayor, sorry, I might also add that there has been quite a number of rural producers contact me in relation to that. And not only that, some of the people in our residents here in Kingaroy and the South Burnett. So I think it's something that we will definitely be looking into more and see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Right, Councillor Henson has presented his report. All in favour that we accept such? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Right, on to item 10.2 on the agenda at 7:49. And the applicant here for a development application comprising material change of use for a service station, an above-ground fuel cell, and reconfiguring a lot under a long-term lease on land at Chinchilla, Wandai Road, Geelong, described as Lot 1 on registered plan 50789. The applicant is South Burnett Regional Council, and the application reference number is MCU 19/0010. In background, the applicant seeks a development permit for a material change of use to establish a service station, above ground fuel cell, on land described as Lot 1 RP 50789, which is located at the junction of Chinchilla Wandai Road and Mundubra Geelong Road. The application also includes a reconfigurable lot component to establish a long-term lease over that part of the site which accommodates the above-ground fuel cell. The proposal seeks to establish an unmanned facility for the refuelling of vehicles and trucks, and which is available to the public 24 hours a day /7 days per week. The fuel cell will be located in the northwestern corner of the site and can be accessed from either road. The proposed facility is located within the rural zone under the South Burnett Regional Council Planning Scheme 2017 version 1.3, known as the Planning Scheme, and is affected by the agricultural land overlay. The proposed land use has been identified as a service station, which is impact accessible development in the zone requiring public notification. Public notification was carried out between 3 April 2020 and 29 April 2020. And the officer's recommendation is that council approve the development application comprising material change of use for service station above ground fuel cell and reconfiguring a lot, long-term lease, on land at Chinchilla Wandai Road, Geelong, described as Lot 1 RP 50789, subject to the following conditions, and the conditions are outlined in the officer's report. Right then, do we have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Duff, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, do we have any councillors who wish to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that when we first suggested this idea, because it was someone had put forward a request that we consider looking like a local business wanted to put a fuel cell there. There was a lot of support and also negativity around it. There was two sides. It created a lot of concern for some of the feedlots and local transport operators because they felt that that was their space for a truck parking area, and they were concerned that if you put fuel there that they wouldn't be able to park there, and some of the local operators particularly needed that space for because of the restrictions on some of those local roads, or the state roads actually not being able to transport B doubles or whatever. They were using it to change and unload and so forth. So then council then went through the process of making an area through the zoning and getting that area that is actually designated for a truck stop to so that those people who are concerned had that space. And so now this is the next process here to have that fuel cell. I know there has been concern from the people who actually own the closed shop because there's still fuel like if anyone purchased that shop, there's actually diesel and petrol tanks that can, they were hoping that that would go with the sale of the Geelong store. And then they think that if that is over the other side, well, that's obviously going to undermine the opportunity to sell that Geelong store. I'm supporting this because I think the Geelong store has been vacant for a very, very long time. Even if you have the truck stop over on that adjacent, you've still got the unleaded fuel, which is not going to be provided across the road because it's just purely for diesel. I think that it will actually make it more attractive to actually put a shop there because you've got the designated truck stop, you've got the diesel there. It's more likely because that store was for groceries, it was also for food and stuff like that. So I think it will actually enhance the area. It's a very sad state of affairs now that that store is closed and there's not a lot of activity there. So I'm excited about having something that's going to, provide a service, but also provide some energy and some enthusiasm back into that little community. So supportive of this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do we have any other councillors wish to comment? Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, Councillor Duff worried me there for a minute. She moved it, and then I thought she was going to talk against it. But anyway, no, I just want to say that I understand the concerns there from the councillor, but totally agree. It has potential to become a little hub of the community where the trucks come in, and the shop, unfortunately, yes, it may deter a sale or something like that. But mate, if I owned that shop, I would certainly be looking at setting up some sort of a little cafe restaurant type thing and working with the people that are going to put the fuel cell out there. And they can there'll be truck people stay overnight and all that sort of stuff, and they'll be wanting meals and all that sort of stuff. So there is huge potential, and I fully support the development out there on that intersection.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Henson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I might just add and reiterate what Councillor Duff and Councillor Jones have said. It would be a wonderful facility out there on that crossroad. It's a major north, south, east and west crossroad, that's for sure. And it's certainly disappointing that the little corner store, the Geelong store, has shut. But I think we'll find that the fuel cell will only hinder in the event of the sale of that place, would only help in the sale of that little store if that was to eventuate, because I think we'll find that the fuel cells under that particular store there might not just comply in this day and age. So a fuel cell there would be more than beneficial to the sale of that little store.
Right, thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question through you, Mr. Mayor, for the CEO. Just wanted to confirm the long-term lease arrangements.
Yes, I would be happy to take that one on notice. Councillors, if I can be the party pooper with this, you're actually dealing with a planning application, not a lease. So the commercial aspects of it, whilst there will be a positive and certainly taking on your points, the application really needs to be considered as a staged approach. This is a planning matter, and so it really needs to be dealt with as a planning matter.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and thank you, Mr. CEO. Right, if there's no further... yes, General Manager O'May.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I could probably talk to that. So, as Councillor Duff indicated, this had came up through an approach by a party looking at putting the fuel there, but because it's a council land, we've got to tender that opportunity, give everyone the same opportunity. So that's what we've done, is actually made the planning application ourselves, incorporating the fuel area as part of the approval, but we've also got to do the reconfiguration, which allows us to establish a lease. So from here, we would go out and tender the opportunity for someone to establish. We wouldn't necessarily be looking at establishing a fuel cell there ourselves. We would tender that opportunity by doing the reconfiguration of a land. And because it will be a long-term lease, we've actually got to do that subdivision at the moment. So that allows us to actually tender that opportunity. As Council talked about previously, the idea is to have the fuel cell there without taking away the breakdown area. So that was some of the initial concerns. So this allows us to actually provide that opportunity. Initially, if we leased out the whole site, if someone, they would have control and potentially use it for their own trucks or exclude people. So we see this as a really good outcome, as we can actually achieve both purposes. But from here, we would be looking at offering that that opportunity for providers to provide that there.
Thank you, GM O'May. I just had one more question, just in terms of why we would lease the lot instead of selling the lot to the potential developer.
I think that there was also probably we can retain some level of control because it's only a section of the lot, and there's going to be the fuel cell will only be on a part of it, so you still need to retain the accesses for the breakdown area. So yeah, we saw that the lease was the best option, where we could still retain control over the surrounding areas for it. Probably just two other comments on the application is, because we are the applicant, we did engage external planning consultants to do the assessment, so we're not actually assessing our own application. So the report you've got here was through external agencies, and the other one, it was publicly advertised, and we received no submissions on that advertising. So just a couple of comments on the application.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager O'May. Right, so the resolution is that council approve the development application comprising the material change of use for a service station, above ground fuel cell, and the configuring of the said lot. Right, those in favour? Those against? Nil. So that resolution has been passed unanimously. Thank you all. Right then, on to item 10.3 at 805, the alignment of plumbing fees with the Plumbing and Drainage Act of 2018 and the alignment of building fees with the Building Act of 1975. So the officer's recommendation here is further to council adopting the Register of Fees and Charges for 1920 on the 12th of June 2019 that includes fees and charges for plumbing and building applications. So the officer's recommendation in relation to that is that council adopt the proposed amendments to the Register of Fees and Charges for plumbing and building applications as following. Plumbing fees, delete the lodgement of application fee. Retain the approval and inspection fee. Retain the $109.50 per fixture fee. Insert a new fee for alterations or modifications to replace the full fee for a new application. And delete the service report registration fee of $55 for each service report, and insert a $55 lodgement fee for service reports. That is a once-off payment at the time the respective service reports are lodged with council. Secondly, in relation to building fees, insert a new $640 fee for minor alterations or modifications to kitchen or bathrooms for existing Class 1. Insert a new fee for Class 7 and Class 8 farm sheds and farm buildings that is calculated at $1,020 for buildings with a floor area less than 500 square metres and $2,040 for buildings with a floor area of more than 500 square metres. And delete the $180 modification/alteration fee and the $105 change to development approval fee for temporary tents over 500 square metres. Right, do we have a mover for the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. We'll now open the floor for those wishing to speak for or against the motion. Any questions? General Manager O'May.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I just might offer some background to councillors on these fees. So, as you're aware, in I think it was April, council decided not to apply any fee increases for this next year and adopted the continuation of the current fees. What we've done here, these are fees that we had identified through the budget process where we would be looking at a reduction in fees. So we see by bringing these amendments forward, we'll actually be able to provide a reduction in fees rather than an increase. So it is just tidying up some of those. So just working through them, we've got probably with the plumbing and with the building ones, we're getting a number of just really minor alterations where it might be just a new bathroom fit out with a, say, NDIS who might get some disability rails and sort of do a bathroom refit out. There's no change of drainage, so just minor works. Technically would be required to have the full inspections. These type of minor alterations are only requiring one inspection rather than sort of 4 or 5 as if it was a new build. So we certainly see that there's a need to have a smaller fee, and that's what those fees are designed both in the building and plumbing as having that minor alteration. So it's really just a renovation of a bathroom or slight upgrade or a kitchen. The other ones, the plumbing fixtures, we've actually had in the plumbings, we had a lodgement fee and an approval inspection fee. It's proved it's proved a bit confusing. So to try to simplify that, we've just left the approval inspection fee the same, dropped off the lodgement fee and kept the fixture fee. So we went through, and there's an example in the report there. This will see about a $60 saving for someone if they've got a standard new house with five fittings. Previously was $1,318 and will now come down to $1,260. So it just matches up. So you'll just have one fee plus the number of fixtures you have. So the larger the house, the larger the number of the fixtures, the fees would be larger for that one. The other one was in relation to the Class 7 and Class 8 buildings. So these are industrial buildings. Class 7 and Class 8 are industrial. And so we've had farm sheds have previously been caught up under an industrial under that industrial classification, but they're certainly a lot simpler again with the inspection process. Most of the farms don't have cladding, and so it is a lower level of assessment required for those large farm buildings. So we've tried to introduce a fee for those large farm buildings, which were previously caught up as an industrial building, and even a level of complexity around an industrial building in relation to fire safety compared to a large hay shed. That's the idea is that we would introduce that fee which would cover those. So it might be a piggery or a shed. Being a rural-based shire, I think we previously did have a couple of years ago had a concessional fee for those fees, but being caught up in the industrial classifications, we thought it was important to reintroduce that one. I think that's and the document lodgement fee. So when the plumbers might put in a report on each of the home sewage treatment plant, they submit. So instead of actually, if someone brings in 20 treatment plants they've serviced, instead of trying to charge them $50 for every single one, like they'll bring in a bundle of 20. We said it's just clarifying that they should just pay the one lodgement fee rather than if they bring in a bundle of 20, then it would end up $1,000 lodgement fee. And that's how we have been always operating. We haven't been charging it per thing. We've been per lodgement. But so just clarifying those in the fees and charges. So this report was really just bringing forward some of those fees and charges we had looked at tidying up this year, and they will offer a reduction rather than an increase in fees for for people who are accessing those.
Right, thank you, General Manager O'May. So in summary, if we look at the second page, back page of the report, what we can see there, just to clarify, is that in relation to plumbing fees, the fee for a dwelling in a sewered area with 5 fixtures would be calculated as follows. So the proposed new fee would be that the previous lodgement of application fee of $168 now be dropped off, that the approval inspection fee stays the same at $712, and that the approval inspection fee, including the additional 4 fixtures, so this is to bring you up from 1 to 5, so would be $109.50 per fixture by a maximum of 5, up to 5. So what you're saying there is that the previous fee was $1,318. The new fee would be $1,259.50, resulting in a potential saving for applicants of $58.50. In relation to the building approval and inspection fee, previously at $1,318, now reduced to $450 on the basis that what we're doing there, Peter, we're dropping off that previous fee, saving of $868.
Yeah, that's acknowledging those really minor works where there's really only one inspection required to complete it, rather than the full series of 4 to 5 inspections that the officers will be out there. So, it's just acknowledging that they are a much simpler process, and it rather than charging a full fee.
Yeah, yes, and for Class 7 and Class 8 farm sheds and farm buildings, $1,020 for those sheds less than 500 square metres, and $2,040 for buildings more than 500 square metres. How does that compare, to the current fee for Class 7 and Class 8 sheds?
So that's a 50% reduction. So, and again, as I said earlier, acknowledging that they're not the same and not the same level of assessment required as a full industrial building for a farm shed.
So just to confirm, just curious how we calculate the fees, and clearly from what you've said, it's based on the required assessments. Just want to confirm that.
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So with the plumbing inspection, you can see we have the inspection and approval fee. So that was calculated on the number of inspections required. So if he's to do his 5 inspections, he's worked out, say, $160 per inspection. Obviously, they're averaging. We've done the calculations on an average, because depending on whether it's Nanango, Blackbutt, or north of Mergen, so they are an average thing. So that's why we're saying that we don't need to charge that full fee for the for those minor works. But yeah, generally all of our fees are calculated on that, the number of assessments, the time taken to do that, plus the say for a building application, the work's required to assess plans and that prior to it, so that's built in. But yeah, all of our fees are generally worked back to a cost basis.
Thank you, General Manager O'May. And in relation to those minor alterations and modifications to kitchens or bathrooms for existing Class 1, the previous fee was $1,000, and that would now come down to the $640. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Again, so they're looking at no, 640. I'm looking at
Yes, thank you, General Manager O'May. Right, Councillor Shoemaker.
I just want to acknowledge the work done to review these fees. I think it's really important that we are charging the right amounts, and with the government's recent announcements around the incentives available for first home builders and the like, it's important that we have a schedule that encourages some of these works to occur in our region and offers an opportunity for local businesses to benefit from that stimulus. So great work, and thank you for bringing it to the table.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. The resolution is that we adopt the proposed amendments to the Register of Fees and Charges for plumbing and building applications as outlined in the report. All those in favour? Resolution carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 11.1, I believe, which is the portfolio report for local disaster management, water and waste. Thank you, Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Water and wastewater. Works in progress and future work summary for May-June 2020. Current water main replacements are as follows. Nanango, Wickham Street, completed. Will Street West, completed. George Street North, completed. Alfred Street in Nanango, completed. And Drayton Street, completed. Rurulan, West Rurulan Road, is completed. Kingaroy, we have Burnett, Haley and Alfred, completed. West Haley Catellan, completed. Knight Walter Hodge, completed. And Youngman, Haley and Avoca should be, is 98% completed with defects repairs underway. Youngman, Venman, Banksia should be nearly completed. Toomey, Youngman and William is completed. And in regional, we have replacement of 1,800 water meters, and currently 1,711 haven't been completed, and we're progressing well. Restriction and dam levels. In the last reporting period, BP Dam was at 20.4% and Madooma Dam was 35.9%. Council will continue with seeking alternative water supplies with drought conditions continuing throughout the South Burnett area. Council is monitoring water restriction levels, but we all still remain at level 3 restrictions. The other dam levels are Gordon Brook Dam at 61.2 and Boo Bear Dam at 24%. And I've got to go over here. And all reactive works, water allocations and financial consumptions will be tabled and will be available on the South Burnett Council website after today's meeting. And also, I was talking to one of the guys that works in wastewater yesterday in Nanango, and he has got down to, it used to be a high level of breakages and that. He said he's got about 6 on his book to go and do, and he should have them finished by the end of the week, so which is great news. I'd love to have my water, wastewater, waste management and local disaster management received. Thank you.
Thank you for moving such. Councillor Fryloff, second for that. Thank you, Councillor Duff. And can once again I say that there has been a tremendous amount of high quality work done in relation to, well, certainly local disaster management. Thank you very much, Councillor Fryloff, Councillor Potter, and General Manager, District Local Coordinator, General Manager Meehan. I think we've been recognised, and I think the results show that we've done a tremendous job, you guys have, with your team and the relevant agencies in managing what has been a challenging few months. And of course, in water, wastewater and waste management generally, we know that there's a lot of good work being done, and we've had significant conversations around that in recent weeks. So congratulations and well done. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question, probably through you for GM Meehan, just around the level 3 restrictions, just noting that dam levels are dropping. Just wondering at what point we start to review water restrictions or...
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, when the drought was significantly a larger impact to us prior to the rainfall, it was our intention to bring a new or an updated restriction policy to Council. With the caretaker period coming into effect and the rainfall, we actually delayed that for the new Council. We would be looking to workshop properly in the coming months to run Council through that. So that you can understand some of the considerations that might be there, and also for the council to adopt a formal policy in relation to those restrictions. So happy to take that on notice, and we'll bring back for a further workshop in the coming months with Tim and his team, if I may, Mayor.
Thank you very much, General Manager O'May. We'll look forward to that process and undertaking that analysis and making the appropriate decision there. With BP Dam at 20% and Boondooma at 35%, timely to do so. In advance of what could, obviously we're going through the winter period. In addition to that, of course, we are still on level 3 restrictions, I do believe, and we would encourage residents to remain au fait with the content of those restrictions and how they apply to you, and that can be obviously accessed on Council's website or by calling our customer contact team. Right. Well, once again, thank you, Councillor Froloff. We've had Councillor Froloff's portfolio report moved. All in favour of acceptance? Good. Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. Okay. Item 11.2 on the agenda is at 814 in the agenda notes and is in relation to a review that has been undertaken of standpipe water charges. And this was conducted in order to compare the standpipe water charges with domestic connected rates throughout the region. Now, if I can provide a little bit of detailed background on this as provided in the officer's report, the situation is that we have undertaken, our department have undertaken here a study in relation to, or analysis in relation to, effectively the cost of water supply to those town consumers as compared with the water supply for those who are accessing the standpipes. So as the summary table here in our notes shows, 8,533 customers, or 84% of all connections, pay $4.10 or more per kilolitre. 1164 customers, or 39.5%, pay $10 or more per kilolitre, and 799 customers, or 27.9%, pay $15 or more per kilolitre. It is assumed, if it's assumed that standpipe customers access 1 kilolitre per week at 52 kilolitres per year, or 1.5 kilolitres per week at 78 kilolitres per year, when compared to the summary table, the price falls in the range of $10 to $15 per kilolitre. So the current standpipe water charge of $4.10 per kilolitre, from what we've been able to establish, is certainly well below what most connected customers pay, and that is effectively the bottom line. And therefore, it is proposed that that be increased to $10 per kilolitre. Councillor Froloff.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. As at the moment...
Sorry, Councillor Froloff. So yes, if I can just finish there, I'll come back to you. A procedural error on my part. So the officer's recommendation is that council adopts the recommendation to increase the standpipe charges to $10 per kilolitre, and that the CEO is delegated to close any standpipe unit or place on buy part if it becomes inoperable or damaged. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. And a second, I thank you, Councillor Potter. And if I can just say one other thing, that is the ongoing maintenance and replacement of the card readers is often due to intentional wetting of the card reader. That has been an ongoing problem, which of course is why, to a certain extent, there is that second recommendation that the CEO has delegated the authority to close standpipes or to bypass such if they become inoperable or damaged. Right, okay, so we'll now move into debating the resolution. Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor. At the moment, at each standpipe in the South Burnett, the people are paying $4.10 per kilolitre. Just for an example, for people that are connected to the network, if you're an urban user and you're connected to the network, you're paying $13.29 per kilolitre. And if you're connected to the Proston Rural Ratepayer scheme, the rural scheme, you're paying $11.73 per kilolitre. So that is quite a jump up on the $4.10 that they pay at standpipes. And to make it fair and equitable across the board, the current price for someone using the standpipes is $4.10, so we're proposing to go to $10 per kilolitre, which is still below the average paid by the rural Proston and the urban supply connections. But I've looked it up, and Western Downs charge $17.90 per kilolitre, so I believe that $10 a kilolitre at the standpipes is quite fair.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. And I also note here that Maranoa Regional Council, another rural council, charge $14.20 per kilolitre. And just to clarify, Councillor Froloff, that $13.29 for users. For Proston, it's $11.73, and it's being recommended that we increase that to $10 for standpipe water. General Manager, Meehan, just one question in relation to the quality of the water that is being accessed through the standpipe compared to those connected households. What's the comparison there? Are we dealing with the same quality of water as such?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer the question. Probably just provide a little bit of background, if that's okay for the council. So, just initially, the standpipes were installed as a method to support our rural residents to access water in times of need when their tanks run dry. A water scheme for an urban area is designed on supply and demand. So there's only so much water that can go into those areas. So this is why we have water restrictions in place in Kingaroy and Nanango and across our towns within the South Burnett. The purpose of the standpipes is not to allow people to use that water without regulation. And unfortunately, because they're not connected to a network where we can enforce that, the way that we manage demand is probably through, in an urban area, is through water restrictions in price. We would rely on the standpipe price to assist us with in managing demand on our network. The more water we take from the standpipes, it actually takes away from the water scheme. The scheme is predominantly designed for urban potable water use. And I note that the Proston Rural Scheme is a non-potable scheme, but it does come from the same supply source, being Boondooma Dam. So one is dependent on the other. So what we've done in response to not so much the vandalism. The vandalism has been a major issue for us in some of these areas. But what we've actually seen, in particular on our listening tours last year, we had a number of questions raised with us from the community in relation to the price of the standpipe. And it wasn't so much of those who use the standpipe, it was those who pay for that infrastructure from those urban schemes. So what happens is predominantly when you pay an access charge is your contribution to the scheme's infrastructure. So the pipework, the reservoirs, all of the infrastructure associated with that. The consumption cost is predominantly, which is also discounted, I might add, by council's standards, is related to the treatment of that water. So what we've done is a comparison charge that the water team has put together here for council's consideration in noting the feedback that we've received from the public. If I was to take the numbers that the council provided then, we did a comparison on 1,000 kilolitres. So if I was to go to a standpipe with my 1,000 litre container to populate my water tank in time of need, I would pay $4.10 for that. If I was to use that same amount of water at my house in Kingaroy or the councillor's home in Nanango, I would pay $13.29. By the time you consider my access charge, that's what I would pay on average per kilolitre. Same being said, if I was in the Proston Rural Scheme and if I'm connected to Proston Rural, if I was to take that same 1,000 litres that I would take at the standpipe for $4.10, I would actually pay $11.73. So our recommendation to council is a twofold purpose, is to represent the contribution that the people that are paying for the scheme make to the water network. And I will say that the Proston Rural Scheme is discounted through the other schemes as well, because it's an average charge that we look at and it's discounted below a potable use. The second part of that is to regulate and control the access to our standpipes to make sure that the standpipes are used for the purpose in which they're intended. They're there to support our community when they need water, and particularly when we saw large usage over recent times. So we believe our recommendation is that it is a fair price point. Majority of people on average connected to a scheme will pay between $10 to $15 per kilolitre. And some might say that that's a privilege that they're connected to the scheme. Well, it's actually what the scheme is designed to do, is to supply for those residents. Otherwise, we would expand their water network everywhere across the South Burnett, and we physically can't do that. And a classic example is this is the reason why we're unable to provide a standpipe in Kingaroy, because we physically do not own enough water to be able to do that in that scheme. So if that assists, Mayor, that's my comments for that.
Thank you very much, General Manager Meehan. That certainly provides clarification. Councillor Froloff.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to include too that the installation of these standpipes cost around $60,000 each, and when they do get vandalised or damaged, it's between $5,000 and $7,000 to have them repaired because of the car readers inside them and getting this professional to come up. We can't just have anyone just come across from Kingaroy or wherever to fix them. These card readers are specialised because they've got people's bank details on board these readers. So it does cost a bit when they do get vandalised, and they do cost a bit to put them in. So.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. So what I'm hearing here is that currently a town user in Nanango, for example, would on average pay $13.29 per kilolitre when one takes into account the access charge and the consumption charge, and that a user on the Proston rule would pay $11.73, and that we're suggesting now that the standpipe users should pay $10 per kilolitre in relation to that. And that the significant cost, in addition to those costs of supplying the water with the infrastructure charges, we've also got the additional costs of replacing or repairing those card readers, which come at a significant cost, where we've got to bring contractors in from the city to fix them, and they can cost $5,000 to $7,000 each time. So there is a cost to council for that service. Right, very good. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking against this resolution. I think that when we first established the standpipe in Heysel, they were surprised that because half of Heysel was on the Proston Rural Scheme, which is non-potable water, and the other half of Heysel don't have access to water. So they were excited about getting the opportunity to access non-potable water for their gardens and things like that. I had a lot of backlash because of the price of $4. They couldn't work out why the Proston Rural Water Scheme, the rest of Heysel was able to access it back then it was $1.40, and they had to pay $4. So then I explained, and I got belted from pillar to post and Facebook and everywhere, and I explained to them that difference was the access, because people on the Heysel Water Scheme were paying not only the user amount of $1.40, but they were also paying an access fee. So then I silenced the critics, and they were fine with that. And then it's been a good news story. We've had, and particularly through the drought, I've had farmers ring up and say, it got me out of trouble. I was able to access some water here and there for different purposes to keep them through, and we're still in drought. So nothing has changed in that perspective. We've still got people out of water. I think that a jump from $4 to $10 is, to me, my community is not like that community of Heysel are there'll be backlash, and it's not. It's the people outside that area, the rural people who have no access to the Proston Rural Water, but were accessing that. I also think that probably part of this, and I think it was because of the vandalism in Nanango, and so I think that's why, I know it might have been reviewed because of the listening to us, but I was also getting feedback that people thought the $4 was plenty. So the Heysel people have looked after that standpipe. It's been a good news story, and I just think that, for me, it's non-potable water, and I just think it jumped from $4 up to $10 in this economic climate, and particularly with the drought, that I'm not going to be able to support this resolution. And if I knew I had the support of the room, I would move a foreshadowed motion, but I probably don't think I have the support of the room, so I'm just going to simply vote against it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Froloff, did you want to respond?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I understand your concerns, Councillor Duff, about the increase, but we've always sat here and said we want to be fair and equitable across the board. We cannot, as you stated, that the vandalism, and yes, I take Thingo that a lot of the vandalism happened in Nanango, but if we're going to do it, we've got to do it for all standpipes, not just favour out, just charge certain standpipes and leave one behind. I think we have to be fair and equitable, and it has to be across the board.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. General Manager Meehan, is it the actual $10 per kilolitre though doesn't cover any potential costs of repair and replacement of vandalism though, does it? It's really just trying to level up or get some fairness and consistency here in relation to the cost of the access fee, the infrastructure, and the water supply charges. But that $10, there's no money that's set aside out of that $10 for repairing card readers or any infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%, Mr. Mayor. Your statement's is spot on. It's about acknowledging the price point and the equity that the people actually who are paying for the scheme contribute. So those who are connected to the water supply, whether they're Proston rural or they're in the urban, they're actually paying for those standpipes. They're paying for those schemes. They're paying for that water. That's why the price point is at $10, because we're looking at what the majority of people connected to the scheme would pay for that water. And again, I'll come back to the vandalism. That the second part of the resolution is there purely to delegate to the CEO that he has delegation to close the standpipe or put it on bypass. What we've seen in the past is where a standpipe has become damaged or vandalised, where the card readers got damaged, we're immediately requested by members of the community in some areas to turn that water onto bypass, which is basically giving away free water. What we would discourage is that the CEO has discretion in that matter to make a decision based on how the damage may have been caused and what other alternatives might be available, and give consideration to those circumstances as well. A lot of times it can happen at short notice, particularly prior to a weekend, and we just want to make sure that we're getting the best outcome for both council and the community and all those people who contribute to the scheme.
Thank you, General Manager Meehan. And if I can ask another question of you, in terms of commercial operators who sell bulk water, are they able to access standpipes such as the one at Highsville and Nango? And B, do we have any evidence of that happening and the water being on-sold at a higher rate?
Yeah, one part I can answer, Mayor. The other part I'll probably take on notice. Again, the standpipes are there to allow convenience for those who want to transport their own water and access it. The commercial operators can access these standpipes, and they do. We have high flow and low flow, similar to what you see at a fuel station. What we would probably work with the council in future is to looking at having some sort of policy around maybe an additional standpipe for the larger tankers to access, so they don't impede the community, because obviously a 30,000 litre tanker takes quite a time to fill, but also ensuring that they've got commercial access to those to regulate those tankers providing water to people of the South Burnett and not to the wider region around our area. We have had cases, and I know other councils have also, where we're seeing tankers come from outside our region because our water is so cheap, and accessing that water and selling it outside of the South Burnett community. Obviously, we have some surrounding people, from Toowoomba region, which would form part of our community. But what we would be looking at is coming back to council through further workshop to look at how the standpipes for those commercial operators and further regulation may operate around these. The other thing that we would consider as part of our water restriction policy is how the standpipes may operate also going forward, to make sure that we've got some regulation. And again, pricing is the first step in making sure that we get responsible usage. The same reason why council adopts a tiered system with inside its potable water supply as well. As far as the on-selling, Mayor, if I may, I'm not aware of the price, and I'll take that on notice. Happy to provide some feedback through those workshops from Tim and his team.
Yes, thank you, General Manager, if you could do so. And if I continue to ask questions in relation to this, the water that is connected services, are they available in Highsville as such to the township in Highsville? Are there connected water services there, for my information?
Yeah, Mayor. So just with that, what I'll probably just recall to council is probably 2 or 3 meetings ago, we presented a network report to council. Council has a water scheme designed based on its source of its water and the amount of connections it can provide into a town with that. So what that allows is that when we talk about the MIP and the growth models, how much we can expand the volume of water in that place. So what the council is saying there before is that there are some people on one side of the street who access to Proston Rural and some people on the opposite side of the street who do not. That scheme was established at the time, same as Kingaroy, where development allowed that water scheme to extend to. So what we see is expansion of areas. We need to look at how we actually expand that water usage in there. What we actually see, though, is if the standpipes are left unchecked on price, so I pay $13 and you pay $4, you could actually have unlimited water for $4 at $4 a thing. If you're connected you'll pay more price for that, and also you're subject to restriction also. So what we're seeing is, and the purpose of the report, and this is what predominantly was raised with us at the listening tours, was that inequity that the standpipes actually allow. Yes, people have to cart their own water, but there is no regulation around that standpipe. And I will just reiterate to council, at the end of the day, our water supply schemes on the standpipes or network is designed for habitual use within those areas. It's not designed for rural stock use and those sort of things, because every time we take water, particularly in drought, from those standpipes, it actually does take from our high priority allocation, which you see in the councillor's previous report. Yes, it does happen, and we like to see it that we support our community, but our water supply that we use for network is predominantly supplied for approved commercial use and habitual use for preservation of life and those sort of things.
If I can just comment on that further, and I'll come to you shortly, Councillor Duff. So if I'm living in the Nango, or I'm living in Hyesville and I'm connected, I get high priority town water, and on average it's going to cost me $13.29 per kilolitre. And I'll come to you shortly, Councillor Duff. Right, so if I'm living in town, I'm paying on average $13.29, including the access charge, and I am, of course, restricted under level 3 restrictions as to when and how much, or when and how I can use that water. However, if I'm coming into town, I'm on the edge of town, I'm not connected, even if I was, I suppose, but I can go down to the standpipe and get it for $10 a kilolitre, and I'm unrestricted. I can go back and forward. I can take 4 tanks down, get 4,000 kilolitres, and I can go back 5 or 6 times a day, and effectively I can take, if I want to do, 10, 20,000 kilolitres, or 10 kilolitres a day, 10, 20,000 litres a day out of the standpipe if I wanted to, and pay very little for it. I can't help but feel that there is certainly an equity issue there. It seemed to me.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, you're 100% right, and that was the exact issue that was raised with us by the community. And the reason for the $10 is you're not going to take 30,000 litres at $10 a kilolitre. You'll take what you need, like you and I do, or any member of the community on that network, to make sure that we use our consumption in line with our targets, because pardon the expression, you'll pay through the nose if you use excessive water. So just to clarify too, on that comment, if you're connected to Proston Rural, which is a non-potable supply, you pay slightly less access charge, hence it's not quite $13, I think it's $11 or something like that. But again, it's the same, you're still buying the same, it's just untreated, but you're still buying high priority water from the pipeline. So, but your statement that you've made is 100% correct.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Duff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that and that's exactly right. In Hyesville, the water that they access in the village of Hyesville is non-potable water, meaning that they can only use it for watering their garden, or, I don't know, flushing the toilet, I presume. I don't even know if they're allowed to use it technically for even that. So, and it's also slow flow. So if you wanted to water livestock in like I've had so many complaints as people can't, it just takes forever to fill a container. So I don't think that we're comparing apples with apples. I think that the Nanango water is potable water that you can take and drink, and it's also, I believe, a higher, faster flow. Is that correct? Just checking on that one.
Yeah, so the standpipes normally have a high flow and low flow pipe hose on them. I'm not sure whether the Hyesville one has a high flow. I'm not sure.
It's a low flow.
Yep.
I've already checked that. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a low flow. So I don't think that we're comparing apples with apples. And the argument to say that it's equitable, it's like if you had a supermarket and it cost you the same to get the stock on the shelf, but you said it's all the same price. But because they can't do what you can do in Nanango with the water. You can only use it for your garden. Whereas if they had access to water that they could drink, I think it's fair enough. But that's why I'm arguing against this resolution. I don't think it's equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask General Manager Meehan, the water in the Proston Rural, that's non-potable?
Yes, it is. It's HP from Burnett Pipeline.
Yeah, okay, so just to try and simplify things, the water that runs into the Highsville at the standpipe comes out of the same infrastructure pipelines and everything else that the people on the other side of the road pay to be joined to.
Yes, that's correct. And that's just make the comment on that is our pricing point is not related to whether it's treated or not, or potable or non-potable. It's related to the cost of the infrastructure and the contribution needed for that and to regulate that water.
That's right. And I know for a fact that I buy water in occasionally. I haven't got any water service where I live, and I know it's not treated. So technically non-potable water, but I'm happy to drink, and that's my risk. So just to keep things simplified, the people that have to use a standpipe that do not have access to that pipeline infrastructure have the choice to use it or not use it. And when they don't have to use it and they're in good season and the tanks are full and all that sort of stuff, they don't pay any fees whatsoever. The people that are continually hooked to that service all year round have to pay a yearly service fee or access fee or whatever all year round. Is that not correct?
Yep, that is correct.
So again, fair and consistent across the region. And yes, we're in dry times and all that sort of stuff. And yes, rural people use it to keep their livestock alive. And I'm sure $10 a kilolitre is quite cheap compared to what they could be facing and all that sort of stuff. So to me, again, you had the choice, and to be fair and consistent to everybody, and again, $10 a kilolitre is not the same as what normal people are paying. It's below the rural, the Proston rural. It's below the other urban charges. And again, they only use it when need be, so it's not an all-year charge. And referring to the vandalism and all that sort of stuff, and we're handing over the delegation to the CEO, people thought it was a terrible thing and it was their right to have free water through a drought. But all those other people in those towns, water restrictions and the access fee all year round, whether they use that water or not, they've still got to pay that access fee. So that goes towards maintaining that infrastructure and pipe that gets the water to that standpipe for those people to access if they need it. So therefore, I think it's only fair that it comes up to a $10 per kilolitre to be fair and consistent across the region. The other people out there that haven't got the access and not paying that fee all year round have the opportunity to use it or not use it. And the fact that if they decide, $4 to $10, more vandalism, well, I can guarantee you, or nearly guarantee, I won't guarantee, you should never say that, but I would nearly say that the likelihood of those standpipes being repeatedly fixed like they were may not happen. And therefore, a small minority in the community will ruin it for the people that really need the access to that water and rely on that. So let's not hide behind any issues here. This is fair and equitable and consistent and all the rest of it. So I understand what Councillor Duff's saying, and things are tough out there and all the rest of it, but they have the choice to use it. And obviously, if it's dry times and they've got no water, they have to use it. But to understand that they are not paying that access fee that everybody else does to maintain that pipeline that gets that water to those standpipes.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment from me. I recognise water is a really valuable resource. I've actually paid $4 or $5 for a bottle of water in a cafe before, and if it's in a flashy, one of those flashy Voss bottles, you'll even pay a little bit more. I do recognise, as per the legislation, we have a mandate to provide reliable and affordable water services across our region to our community, and that standpipes are really important infrastructure, particularly during times of drought. People did rely heavily on them, and I think it's important that we're covering the cost of the standpipe so that this infrastructure can be maintained into the future. My worry is if we're undercutting what it actually costs for council to provide water to these standpipes and to maintain them into the future, that potentially we'll be in a position where the assets will no longer be viable in our community and we won't be able to fund the replacement of them. So I thank you for the work that's been done on this. I know you've got an excellent team in the water and wastewater team who have done a lot of work in making these calculations. Of course, the increase in fees is, I believe, suitable when we start talking about the cost of high priority allocation from Bundoomba Dam, and when we look at situations like what the blackbutt irrigators pay for water to irrigate their avocados and things like that. Water is a really valuable resource, and it must be charged accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll now put the motion to the vote. So I will just clarify that the officer's recommendation is that council increases standpipe charges to $10 per kilolitre, and that the CEO be given the delegation to close standpipes units or place on bypass if they become inoperable or damaged. Those in favour? Councillors Potter, Shoemaker, Jones, Froloff, Henson and Otto. Those against? Councillor Duff has voted against. Resolution passed 6 votes to 1. Thank you all. (12.1), which is the portfolio report for rural resilience, Parks and Gardens, Property and Facility Management and Indigenous Affairs. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item is rural resilience. It was uplifting to see the wonderful prices received for cattle producers at Coolangatta sale, with over $1 million worth of cattle sold recently. The federal government drought money will be rolled out across our region, with lots of small capital and renewal projects soon to begin. We also have around $200,000 of that funding earmarked to help to build resilience and capacity in our communities, as well as a long-term drought resilience plan for our region. Councillors have been asked by General Manager O'May to put forward ideas on how that could work. Those ideas are being collated to come up with a proposal that will be rolled out over the next 6 months. In Parks and Gardens, Kingaroy, Mergen, Wandai, Proston, Nanango, Blackbutt and all surrounding areas. Rogers Drive Roundabout Revitalisation Program is progressing to schedule, with the first 2 rounds of plannings completed. The next planning will be in September, with approximately 300 emu bushes completing this project. The planning has certainly made a difference in enhancing the approach into Kingaroy. This project was led by 2 of Council's most experienced Parks and Gardens supervisors, along with an enthusiastic team of staff and trainees. This project was a great learning exercise for our horticultural trainees. So that there has been a lot of positive feedback about that planting, so that they were emu bushes. I've had lots of people asking what they were. The damaged barbecue at Mount Rurulan, we've just inserted that, wasn't in there before, has been demolished and replaced with a new barbecue. The walking track has been cleaned up, rolled and patched where needed. The gardens have had the soil turned over and topped up with fresh forest mulch and will be planted with some natives and ground cover. The entrance road will be trimmed with the flail mower in June to tidy up the roadsides, along with the removal of dead trees, etc., leading up to the lookout. The walking track and bollards, again at Mount Rurulan, on the service road to the water tanks were damaged in the rainy period by 4x4s. This area has been cleared and the road will be tidied to allow a safe passage for walkers. This area has been used as a dumping ground for household rubbish, with 3 ute loads being removed in the tidy up. Annual tree pruning has commenced in the CBD of Kingaroy, along with tree lopping and removal of unhealthy trees across the region. Other general maintenance is continuing throughout the region, with a focus on entrances, exits, traffic islands and the CBDs. Cemetery scopes have been developed for the region and are in progress, with the main focus on maintenance of sunken areas, watering and fertilising, pest eradication, garden bed seeding and creating a higher level of care across the region. Park staff are continuing to undertake duties as requested in response to the federal and state government direction with COVID-19. Currently, all playgrounds, skate parks and open park space, including 48-hour stopovers, are reopened as per Queensland State Government Roadmap to Easing Restrictions, Stage 2. Council has updated signage in all these areas to ensure a consistent message is received within our community. Point 1. Stay at home if you're unwell. Avoid touching your face, nose and mouth. Stay 1.5 metres away from people who are coughing or sneezing. Cover coughs and sneezes. Wash hands regularly and maximum gatherings of up to 20 people. In the CapEx program, the removal and replacement project of 40 service pillars at Yallaclaw Park has commenced, which will modernise and improve these service sites and reduce electrical, plumbing maintenance costs. Also, refurbishments are underway on the 8 powered ensuite buildings. These works include painting, new showers, screens, new shower heads, new tapware, and new toilet systems, which will lift these facilities. Dams. Currently, Badooba and BP dams are open for day use only from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Council is planning on reopening both dams in August 2020 in line with COVID-19 requirements. Compliments. We've had some compliments, so I'm just going to read those. Family members from Sunshine Coast who travel to Wondai every 2 months to visit past family stated that this is by far the nicest visit they have had. The place looks amazing. We are so glad to see some watering happening. The lawn area looks beautiful and fresh and the drab plants taken away. First time in a long time have we seen the area freshly mowed and looking pristine. Thank you for looking after our grandfather and great-grandfather. Former council employee of 20 years when visiting the Kingaroy Cemetery said it was a pleasure to see someone take the time to explain and show me the issues, what was being done, and show some care for the cemetery, for our cemetery. It is wonderful to come out in the late afternoon and be greeted by council staff actually making a fuss over the place, and it's looking beautiful and green, tidy and maintained. Mergen staff member was approached in CBD whilst on a break from COVID-19 spraying of Viracil and was given a big thank you for keeping locals safe and said this is a great thing to see happen. A lady and her 5 friends working out at Memorial Park expressed their thanks to the staff for chemical spraying and cleaning of the playgrounds and tables, etc. They had not seen anything like this happening outside of this region to this level to alleviate the COVID-19 issues. It was great but scary to see council staff in outfits spraying to keep us and our children safe. They expressed their sincere appreciation to council and staff. In property and facility management, works have commenced at Wondai Swimming Pool for the installation of solar heating and replacement of the pool filtration system. Works will include craning in the filtration tanks, circulation pumps and material to the site on Tuesday, 23rd of June, 2020. Council has completed the additional maintenance projects at the South Burnett Aquatic Centre. These works included the replacement of valves, replacement of grandstands, new floor coverings in the kitchen, and new plastic grates around the hydro and 25-metre pool. Painting contractors have recently completed the painting of Wondai Sports Ground grandstand. The final touch will include a sign illustrating the names and logos of each of the different Wondai sporting and recreation groups, such as Wondai Garden Expo, that utilise the facility. Council has commenced installation of a large generator to the Kingaroy Administration Building. This will ensure backup electricity supply to the office in periods when there is no power available. Ongoing lease inquiries, survey of lease areas and negotiation of lease conditions have continued during May for community groups and commercial operators. And finally, in Indigenous Affairs, the Cherbourg councillors and CEO have been invited to share lunch with our council tomorrow, followed by a meeting. Mayor Elvie Sandow and her team have accepted the invitation, and we look forward to meeting with them in the Town Hall reception room tomorrow. This will be a great opportunity to meet their new team and start to build some relationships and share ideas as the COVID restrictions begin to ease. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to move my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Duff, if I can perhaps just reinforce your statements there. Much like the roads crew, the Parks and Gardens crew particularly have been working tremendously hard, and I can't recall seeing the area around Kingaroy, just as I drive to work, looking so good in a long, long time. And of course, I've noticed that right across the region. So, General Manager O'May, please pass on thanks of council, if I can speak on behalf of my fellow councillors, for the tremendous work that your Parks and Gardens crew are doing. Thank you. And of course, in addition, Indigenous Affairs, Councillor Potter and Councillor Duff and myself met with the South Burnett ATSI group yesterday. And I must say I was very encouraged by their interest and enthusiasm for promoting the interests of Indigenous people broadly across our region. We certainly have a strong concentration of people in Cherbourg, and we are very committed to our relationship with the Cherbourg Council, but we also have approximately 1,000 Indigenous people who live throughout the communities, be it from, around Wandai, Murgon Wandai, Kingaroy, the Nango and Blackbutt, and those people, I think, and that group is certainly very focused on working in the interests of those people as well. Right, okay. Does anyone else wish to comment on Councillor Duff's report? Thank you, Councillor Duff, and thank you for all of your hard work in your portfolio. Right, well, all those in favour of... Councillor Shoemaker, sorry, a late entry.
Sorry, I probably just have a question on notice. I have received some feedback from the Kingaroy CBD business owners who are grateful for the trees that have been trimmed because it has reduced the number of leaves falling from the trees and blowing into their stores. I'm probably just more interested in how often, I have had a look in the financial report, how often the streets of Kingaroy are swept and how that process actually works. So it's a question more to take on notice, but I'm very interested in some more information about how we actually maintain that leaf debris, particularly during times like this with the autumn sort of leaves falling, winter falling. It is an issue in our CBD, and I would like some more information if and when possible.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Schumacher. And General Manager O'May, happy to go to you to answer that question. But I do know, Councillor Schumacher, that Councillor Duff, as a portfolio holder, is also working on this with General Manager O'May and his team. Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, I was just going to mention through you, Mr Mayor, that the Council Duff has asked that we bring that forward to Council and discuss the processes around that. So we would be looking at the next briefing, talking through that with Council.
Thanks very much, General Manager O'May. Okay, right, have we voted on that yet? I've lost track. We have. Have we? Multitasking can be challenging for fellows like myself. Right, moving on now. Item 12.2. Oh, we haven't voted. Sorry. Right. Okay. Lunch is overdue. Right. Okay. All those in favour? Good. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Now, on to item 12.2 on the agenda at 818, which is in relation to the appointment of managers to Council's tourist parks at Lake Boondooma Caravan and Recreation Park and Yallakul Caravan and Recreational Park at Bajelki-Peterson Dam. With the closure of the Council's tourist parks as part of the COVID-19 pandemic response, Council is taking the opportunity to review and restructure the management of these facilities, and Council is currently advertising for new park managers and a relief manager. It is the officer's recommendation that Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate terms and appoint new park managers, including a relief manager at Council's tourist parks at Lake Boondooma Caravan and Recreation Park and Yallakul Caravan and Recreation Park at Bajelki-Peterson Dam. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Frolov, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Right, do we have any councillors who wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am keen to speak for this resolution, but I also think there's a huge weight on our CEO's shoulders to get this right, because the managers of the dams, over the years, there's been some really good ones and we've had some really challenging ones. So I think we need to make sure we get it right. So if you don't get it right, you're in big trouble because it's make or break for us, because it's our reputation is at stake. And so I just wanted to say that, yeah, I'm just highlighting the fact that, yeah, it's a big deal for our council.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Did you wish to respond at all, Mr CEO? No, I only express as the Mayor that I have every faith in our CEO and his capabilities and that of his team. Should we hopefully receive a quality pool of candidates, I'm sure that they will they will ensure that we get the best outcome in the interest of the community and the development and progression of those dams. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do share that same faith in CEO Mark to deliver on this outcome. I just probably was more curious about the term that we were looking to employ this. Is that part of the negotiation, CEO Mark? Just in terms of, we've had some discussions around formulating a master plan for dams and looking at the commercialisation of these assets. And I know that there needs to be interim measures to run the dams, but I was just curious as to how long, if we're appointing somebody, is it how long will the managers be appointed for?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Yeah, we are looking at a 12-month term with the option for council to extend if required. So to give us that time to review our future operations and so give us that flexibility if we do want to change. So we are just looking at 12 months at this time.
Sorry, Councillor Duff.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just think because we've got the media here and that we probably should say when the expressions, if we could, the expressions of interest when they're closing, and so that people and whereabouts, what media.
Oh yes, thank you, Councillor
outlets,
Duff.
because otherwise people.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Can I? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Yep, please, if I could. The media team have released. There is a media release which addresses all of those matters, and all of the media. If they haven't received that now, would certainly have that. I signed that off yesterday. Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff. Right, all those in favour of the resolution? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 12.3 at 8:20 is in relation to the offer of a trustee lease to the Queensland Government, who are represented by the Public Service Business Agency over Lot 356 on FY 489, which effectively formalises the tenure for the existing telecommunications tower on Mount Marulan outside of Kingaroy. It is the officer's recommendation that in accordance with Section 236 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council enter into a trustee lease with the State of Queensland, represented by the Public Safety Business Agency, for part of Lot 356 on FY 489 for the continued use of the telecommunications tower for emergency services. We have a mover. General Manager O'May, 1 point.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, Mr. Mayor, it is actually Lot 346. I just checked before. There is an error in the resolution. So.
Thank you, General Manager O'May. So we have a clarification. We are actually dealing with part of the reserve for Public Park, Lot 346 on FY 489. Lot 346 on FY 489. If we could have that corrected. Thank you, Minute Secretary. Right, okay. Well, we've had that. We had a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones has moved the motion. Councillor Henson, does anyone wish to speak to the matter? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. I would now suggest that we seek to resolve to close the meeting for lunch, and then we return after lunch and reopen the meeting and attend to items from 12.4 through to item 16.6. So I'll move that we now close the meeting for lunch. I have a seconder for such. Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. All in favour? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Meeting closed for lunch. At 12:42 p.m. And we'll return at, CEO Mark? 1:30 p.m. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Right, well, I'll now move that the meeting resume at 1:43 p.m. with attendance as previous to the adjournment. Do you have a second for that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Fryloff. All in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. We now move to item 12.4 on the agenda, which relates to the approval to transfer the tenancy of a shed at Kingaroy Enterprise Centre from Tabinga Rotary to St John's Lutheran PNC for conducting the Bookarama fundraising event. Now, we have had perceived conflict of interest declared here by Councillor Shoemaker in relation to having children who attend St John's Lutheran School, and from myself, the Mayor, in relation to my membership of the Tabinga Rotary Club. As such, I would hand over to Deputy Mayor Councillor Jones to now continue with proceedings. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As you've just stated, yourself and Councillor Shoemaker have declared perceived conflicts, but I will open it up to the other members of the chamber, the other councillors, to have a brief conversation to see if there's any issues, or they are happy to allow yourself and Councillor Shoemaker to stay present. And if they feels good about that, I will hand the proceedings back to yourself. So,
Councillor, if I may I assist?
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
Mr CEO.
No, that's all right. There's actually, as part of the, because both of these are perceived and not real conflicts of interest under the legislation, councillors may remember we had a similar situation with Councillor Potter and Councillor Height back for Go Getter Girls. So I'm taking it from the declaration earlier in the meeting that both councillors intended to stay. So we write up the minutes that I declare I have a conflict of interest as defined by the Act, blah, blah, blah. I've determined that this personal interest is not sufficient significance that it will lead me to making a decision on the matter that is contrary to the public interest. I will to best perform my responsibility of serving the overall public interest of the whole of the council's area by best participating in the discussion and voting in the matter. However, I acknowledge that the remaining councillors must now determine, pursuant to section 175E4 of the Act, whether I have a real conflict of interest in the matter or perceived conflict of interest. If so, whether I must leave the meeting or... So it's actually quite a formal process. I'm sorry to say it's not the right word, but what we would now call for is the council resolve is someone to move and second it, please, if you wouldn't mind, Acting Chair, that someone calls for that the two councillors if they have a real or perceived, it would be a perceived conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, councillors may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it. So we would need a mover and a seconder. Of the 5 remaining councillors, the 2 that have given notice do not participate.
Sorry.
Yep. So I just call for someone to move that. Would someone like to move that that be accepted? Councillor Potter, someone second it, Councillor Duff. And do we open the floor up, Mr CEO, now for conversation, or we're just happy to move? So open it up for any conversation?
Up to you, but it's pretty procedural. The councillors would have an opinion whether they have or haven't got a real or perceived conflict of interest, and if they can extend their judgment to the best interest of the region. So the resolution would read: the council resolve that councillors Otto and Schumacher have a perceived conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, councillors Otto and Schumacher may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it. So that's what the 5 remaining councillors are voting upon.
Okay, so again, I'll go back then. Councillor Potter, are you happy to move that?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Seconder, Councillor Duff, you're happy to second that? Okay, all in favour? Okay.
So 5-0.
5-0, unanimous.
Thank you. All right,
Back
Mr.
to the
Mayor,
Mayor.
you may resume the chair.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
It's always good to get a bit of procedural diversity.
Yes, indeed. Thanks very much, and thank you, Mr CEO. Right, so we're dealing with item 12.5 at 8:24, and the officer's recommendation that council approves the transfer of occupation of the shed to the St John's Lutheran School P&C Parents and Friends Association, to continue the Bookarama fundraising event. The shed is used to store books collected for the Bookarama event, which was held each year by the Tabinga Rotary Club, but now St John's School Parent and Friends Association has expressed an interest in taking over the running of the event, which includes taking occupation of the shed. Thank you both. We'll now go to the floor for those who wish to speak for or against. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, I would just like to say that this is a great outcome. The Bookarama has been a great event for the Kingaroy and even the South Burnett since it's first started, and I would just like to say that it's really great that that the St John's has actually offered to take this on and taking this over, because I love this event and I'd hate to see this go by the wayside. So I think this is great that they're working together for this outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Anyone else? Any other comment? No? Okay. Well, sure. Can we go to the vote on that? All those in favour of the resolution? Yes. Okay, so the resolution has been passed unanimously. Thank you all. In Mergen, sale of McAllister Street premises, sale of McAllister Street in Mergen by tender. This is the house only, clarification. Officer's report is at 8:27. So council owns 41 McAllister Street, Mergen, being a house and land located adjoining the Mergen depot, and was rented until the tenant vacated in 2019. The house requires maintenance over the next 2 to 3 years to ensure it complies with standards for offering rent on the open market. Council offered the property for sale on the open market, but it did not sell. The land is to be retained for future expansion of the Mergen depot, and the house offered for sale for removal. It is the officer's recommendation that council dispose of the house, a valuable non-current asset located at 41 McAllister Street, Mergen, in accordance with section 227 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Okay, we'll now open the floor to those who wish to speak for or against the motion. Yes, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's fairly straightforward. I have had some people wanting to actually lease the house, but from what I spoke to the properties manager, and it's not in the best of condition and probably not in the best interest of council to spend the money to upgrade it, and so I'm happy to move down this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think this is a great opportunity. It's an example of how this council can work with its community to potentially reduce its asset portfolio, and I'm supportive of the request.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, well, if no one else wishes to speak, we'll put it to the vote. Those for? Thank you all. The resolution has been passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 13.1 at 8:31, and it is the portfolio report for economic development, including industry, agriculture, water security and tourism. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and it's with a great pleasure that I provide this month's report. First item on my report, COVID-19 Road to Recovery. Over this past month, I've engaged in conversations from across the region with different support agencies, businesses and farming enterprises. In these conversations, I have learned COVID-19 has impacted everyone differently, and that the uptake in government incentives, including JobKeeper, have helped many local businesses to continue to operate during these unprecedented times. The ID Community Demographic Resources has modelled and estimated the potential impacts of the virus on economic activity, employment and sectors at the local government area level to June 2020. The modelling draws on the economic forecast model developed by NIA, and assumptions have been made about the household, business and government suppression rates following the restrictions introduced to contain the virus. These forecasts are subject to a high degree of uncertainty and will continue to be improved and updated as more information is released and can be accessed online in the websites listed there. The key insights from the modelling from June quarter 2020 include a gross regional product is forecast to fall by minus 9.3%, noting that this fall was lower than the state average, that local jobs are forecast to fall by minus 6.1%. This equates to approximately 780 local jobs. And if JobKeeper recipients are included, then the employment fall is estimated at minus 11.5%. While we have each stepped up and done everything asked of us to stop the spread, we now face a new challenge to restore the jobs and economic activity that we lost, particularly in the areas of tourism, retail and hospitality. I encourage everyone across our region to support our local businesses and to explore the experiences and opportunities we have available here on our doorsteps. Every dollar invested in our region is a dollar that supports local jobs, families, employees and businesses. Economic growth will require strong collaboration and investments that encourage regional population growth. Strong collaboration and bold conversations will be critical to shaping our economic development strategy, our priorities, and the key performance indicators that we hold ourselves accountable to in the measurement of our success. It is both timely and opportune for this council to redefine the role we play in economic development and pivot like many other businesses in our region. Over this past month, this council has discussed the desired attributes of livability and lifestyle and how community-owned facilities and council's broader operations support our residents' way of life and encourage investment and business confidence. While our search for ideas and concepts will come from both in and outside of our region, we share a deep desire to be innovative in our pipeline of shovel-ready projects, and to use our seat at many tables in which council sits to support, encourage, drive and advocate for outcomes and funding that strengthens the sustainability of our region and targets opportunities for growth. Our region is challenged by its heightened level of social disadvantage, with the towns of Kingaroy and Nanango ranking in the top quartile of Queensland's 513 statistical local areas for social economic disadvantage as measured by the Socio-Economic Indexes for Areas, CEFA. This index considers income, education, employment, occupation and housing. I also find it concerning that in 2019, the Australian Bureau of Statistics reported the South Burnett's third consecutive year of population decline at 32,521 people, a reduction of 28 people who no longer live in our region. In the early 1990s, the South Burnett experienced growth that fluctuated into the early 2000s. However, since 2013, population has continued to decline, and some correlations have been drawn to the operations of Toorong Power Stations and Meandu Mine, the commissioning of Toorong North, and temporary cold storage of generating units in 2004 that have since been returned to service. The Australian Energy Market Operators, AEMO, modelling and its published list of expected closure dates suggests a dramatic reduction in the number of coal-fired power stations by 2040. AEMO has publicly reported Toorong Power Station's planned exit from the national electricity market in 2036-2037. While the date of Toorong's end of life is uncertain and under continual review, closing down any significant business like a power station or a mine is not only complex but requires careful planning and management. In planning the South Burnett of 2040, it's important we consider how we can be best prepared and positioned for this eventual transition. Furthermore, as stated in the local Australian Government 2019 Planning for Australia's Future Population Policy, population growth is considered a shared responsibility involving federal, state and local governments working together. As a council, we must make the most of opportunities to attract and draw businesses, professionals and skilled residents away from metropolitan areas. During 2019, the Australian Bureau of Statistics recorded an increase of 2.1% in the population in Brisbane. I believe the South Burnett is well positioned for growth into the future, and I stand with you, my fellow councillors and our community in recognising our advantageous geographical location, the significant affordability of housing and the continued possibilities offered by our vast and diverse economy. As a council, I would like to see us do what we can to remove red tape and work hand in hand with businesses and industry to enable them to grow their operations, sustain and, if possible, increase their workforce capacity, because every job here in the South Burnett matters. The progression of the $11.3 million Kingaroy Transformation Project is an example of how this council and government are together investing in infrastructure that supports our residents' quality of life and enables growth in an effort to meet the needs of future generations. I'd like to thank and acknowledge Federal Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management and Member for Maranoa, David Littleproud, who recently announced that Council has secured $4.7 million funding through the federal government's Building Better Regions Fund to proceed with this project. That will evidently provide timely economic stimulus in our region. I'd also like to acknowledge Mayor Keith Campbell, as we have done earlier this meeting. In talking with businesses in Kingaroy CBD and local residents, I recognise this project is much more than the asphalt footpaths, underground water infrastructure, cabling and communications network. It's more than the street furniture, landscaping and the improved safety of pedestrian access. It's the core infrastructure essential to a healthy and vibrant local economy, a project that will complement the current progression of the Mergen CBD footpath redevelopment and Council's ongoing commitment to future footpath redevelopment programs to be considered in the communities of Wondai, Blackbutt, Cumbia and Nanango as funding becomes available. In many conversations, many agree the provision of a modern, efficient and reliable infrastructure in Kingaroy CBD is good for our entire region. This project will create a space for vibrant day and nighttime experiences and enable everyone across the region to, within a short drive, continue to access the goods and services they need here from within the South Burnett. An evolving visitor economy. While tourism operators have been hit hard by the impacts of COVID-19, our region offers wide open spaces and our location means we are well positioned to capitalise on tourism as restrictions continue to ease. Over this past month, the Tourism Advisory Committee has met and Mayor Otto, CEO Mark Pitt and I also met with local tourism operator Visit South Burnett and regional tourism operator Southern Queensland Country Tourism to understand their vision and aspirations for the year ahead. We've also been at the table with an exciting project concept that would create employment opportunities and significant direct and indirect benefits in the South Burnett. This business is currently planning an application for the Growing Tourism Infrastructure Fund, and while the project is commercial in confidence, I am hopeful for their success. Furthermore, I'd like to acknowledge everyone to consider exploring what is on offer in our own backyards during the upcoming school holidays, to take a look at the South Burnett, Discover South Burnett website and the Visit South Burnett social media pages for more information. In terms of the water supply requirements in the North and South Burnett options analysis, the strategic business case was completed in April 2020 and is soon to be publicly released and available on Council's website. The strategic business case has considered a large and diverse collection of studies and technical reports and included significant stakeholder engagement in an effort to openly discuss potential issues, concerns, and gain valuable insights relating to the proposed projects. While COVID-19 restrictions interrupted the study, both virtual and telephone consultations were extensively utilised by the lead consultant Jacobs, who continued to meet with stakeholders across the Burnett region. In an effort to take advantage of the region's natural endowments and to address identified impediments to water security across urban, industrial and agricultural sectors, an options long list of 28 potential projects was compiled for the North and South Burnett regions and were assessed for feasibility against the multi-criteria of strategic and policy alignment, legal and regulatory concerns, public interest considerations and strategic risk. The project steering committee recently met to discuss the next stage of options analysis to be undertaken so that the projects that were found to have considerable merit can be shortlisted and should be investigated further in some way. While some of the options require much more assessment, such as that of a detailed business case, others can be progressed more rapidly in a fit-for-purpose assessment. The final options analysis is expected to be undertaken in the coming weeks, and Council has made representation to the steering committee for further studies and a longer-term focus on the economy and way forward to progress the security of supply in the South Burnett. Planning is currently underway for a public meeting to update the community over the coming month, as well as subsequent stakeholder meetings that will help inform the long-term economic roadmap and potential benefits for the region. I recognise many of the ideas for water security and growth will not work in isolation, hence a longer-term strategy to improve the reliability and security of water in the South Burnett region is required. The strengthening and expansion of urban water security and enabling further agriculture and industrial activity into the future remains a key focus moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that my report be accepted.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Right. Well, once again, a very comprehensive report. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. You've got a lot going on. There's a lot happening in this space, that's for sure. Do any of the other councillors wish to comment or ask any questions at this stage? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a look at the water study and where it's at the moment, and I did send some feedback, and I think I copied all the councillors into it about making sure that we have those identified projects shovel ready for the state election. So I'm hoping that that's still a key focus of the working group. If you'd like to provide some feedback on that one, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, the committee met just last week. We've put together in the response that GM Meehan provided, we've put together a response in terms of how we might be able to progress to that next stage of the project.
Yeah.
So it's very much a work in progress. There are things happening, and we're awaiting on further advice from the department in relation to the funding and what we can do with the remaining funding.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. As you point out, it is a work in progress. We are hopeful that all will go to plan now in terms of taking this through to the options analysis stage over coming weeks, and that by the end of July we will be in a position to have something that we can present in response to your question, Councillor Duff. So very confident that well in advance of the state election we will have the consultants' report and certainly be in a position to be able to present that to the relevant decision-making authorities. Thank you. Well, all in favour of accepting Councillor Shoemaker's portfolio report? Thank you all. That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, we'll now move on to item 13.2 at 832, which is the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee minutes for the months of April and May, and minutes from the South Burnett TAC meetings were being held on the 27th of April and the 11th of May 2020. Councillors have been provided with a copy of the minutes from the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee meetings held in those months. The officer's recommendation is that Council receive the minutes of the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee's meetings held on 27 April and 11 May 2020. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Does anyone wish to comment or have any questions in relation to the minutes? Okay, all those in favour that we accept such? Thank you all. Passed unanimously. Item 14 is in relation to consideration of notice of motion. I note, do we have any notices of motion as such? I don't believe so. Okay, there's nothing there. We'll move on then. So we're now at the stage where we're going into the information section, and item 15.1 is a list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report at 8:43. Right, so the officer's recommendation that the list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report be received. A list of those reports is provided in the agenda as seen there. Does anyone want me to go through those? Are you happy to accept those as such? If so, we'll seek a mover for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Duff, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Passed unanimously. The delegated authority report is the next item on the agenda, item 15.2 at 8:44, and the officer's recommendation is that the listing of reports that the delegated authority be received in relation to the reports signed by the CEO under delegated authority. Those approvals and dates are provided in the notes in the agenda item in the officer's report. Do we have a mover for that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Okay, does anyone wish to seek any further information, have any questions, or wish to comment in relation to those ECMIDs that are stated in the resolution? If not, those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution has been passed unanimously. Right, that now concludes that part of the meeting. We're going to move into the confidential section of the meeting now. So what that means is that we will go into what we refer to as committee, and in doing so, we will seek to close the meeting. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We will now move to reopen the meeting. So I'll move that the ordinary meeting be reopened at 3:01 p.m. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. All in favour? Thank you. The meeting is now open for business. We're attending to the items that have been discussed in the confidential part of the meeting. And the first item on the agenda. Oh, sorry. Oh, the mayor report. That's of course. This is right. So whilst in closed session, in accordance with section 275 1D, rating concessions, and section 275 1E, contracts proposed to be made by it, of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council considered matters concerning financial hardship and tenders. The motion is, so the motions will then be moved in relation to each one of those. Is that correct? All right. So I'll now move that Mayor's report be received. Do we have a seconder for such? Thanks, Councillor Potter. All in favour? Thank you. Motion has been passed unanimously. Right. So the first item on the agenda of the confidential section is item 16.1, which is a financial hardship rates application. The officer's recommendation is that in relation to assessment number 40388-00000-001, due to financial hardship, that council agree to a special payment arrangement subject to the following terms and conditions. Commencing from 1 July 2020 until 31 December 2020, all rate payments will be on hold. Commencing from 1 January 2021, payment of rates will be made at $200 per month for the first 12 months for that assessment. Commencing from 2 January 2022, a further 2-year payment arrangement of $787 per month, reviewed annually subject to the amount of rates issued. No interest is charged on overdue rates whilst the payment arrangement is in place and the agreed monthly payment amount is adhered to. This payment plan will expire upon payment in full of all outstanding rates and charges, and the General Manager Finance and Corporate will be authorised to negotiate a suitable repayment plan should the payment arrangement be rejected or varied. Do we have a mover for the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Does anyone wish to speak to the resolution? No? All those in favour? Thank you. The resolution has been passed unanimously. We now move to item 16.2, financial hardship rates application for assessment number 21199-50000-000, and the officer's recommendation is that council agree to a special payment arrangement subject to the following terms and condition, being commencing from 1 June 2020 until 30 September 2020, payment of rates are deferred for that above mentioned assessment. Commencing from 1 October 2020, the ratepayer enter a 3-year payment arrangement of $119.50 per week, being $478 per month. No interest is charged on overdue rates whilst the payment arrangement deferral is in place, and the ratepayer continue to pay the agreed weekly payment amount. This payment plan will expire upon payment in full of all outstanding rates and charges, and the General Manager, Finance and Corporate be authorised to negotiate a suitable repayment plan should the ratepayer reject or vary the payment plan discussed above. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. All in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. Moving on to item 16.3. Council has received quotations under tender for the replacement and purchase of a new motor grader. The recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council purchase from John Deere the John Deere 670G with TopCon 2D laser for $403,910 excluding GST, as it represents value for money, and with standard lever controls. Council operators have extensive experience in operating the plant. Do we have a mover for the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Jones, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Okay, does any councillor wish to speak in relation to the motion? Okay, we'll go to vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 16.4 is in relation to the Gordon Brook Water Treatment Plant construction contract, and the recommendation is that Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the Gordon Brook Water Treatment Plant contract. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? For or against? No. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. On to item 16.5 on the agenda, which is the preferred supplier tender for South Burnett Regional Council 18/19-14 traffic management. Tenders were called for the South Burnett Regional Council supply and delivery of traffic management services. This report outlines the tenders received and provides a recommendation for acceptance. It is the officer's recommendation that Council accept the tender from South Burnett Security and Traffic Control for the supply and delivery of traffic control services for a period of 24 months with a fixed period of 12 months for rates and prices. Do we have a mover for the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? We'll go to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. The resolution has been passed unanimously. Item 16.6, pre-qualified supplier tender for the South Burnett Regional Council 18/19-15 civil works. Council has received a list of tenders for pre-qualified supplier register for civil works, and the recommendation is that Council approve the list of providers to be included in the pre-qualified supplier register for civil works for the period 17 June 2020 to 17 June 2025. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. All in favour? Thank you, councillors. The resolution has been passed unanimously. That now brings to a conclusion all of the items on the agenda for today's meeting. And I would like to, before closing, to thank everyone for your attendance. It has been a long day, but it has been a productive day. So thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you back here for the next meeting on the 15th of July, when we will attend to the budget and then move into the ordinary meeting. So with that, I will then move that the meeting be closed.